In 2505, portals appeared in the sky. From there, demonic beings came to Earth. Humanity tried to resist the monsters with the help of military forces. However, the disaster could not be prevented. Only after 3 years did extraordinary abilities awaken in the Chosen Ones. And they became metahumans. From then on, a fierce struggle for survival began. However, a chasm emerged between ordinary people and those who had abilities. Metahumans united and created a safe zone for themselves, the so-called city. Everything outside its borders was dubbed the desert. It was in such conditions that the main character Sven lived. He had no extraordinary abilities, but an unknown voice called on the boy to kill metahumans. The inhabitants of the danger zone learned to survive. They hunt low-level monsters to obtain their cores. The main character also participates in hunting. He knows the area and local monsters well, and therefore he acts as a guide for the meta people of the desert. On another sortie, Sven quickly explained to the team that their target was a rank 19 copper spider. First, you should take away his legs, and only then his head. But the hunters did not listen very carefully to the guide's warnings. The monster appeared suddenly and attacked immediately. Everyone froze in fear of the giant monster. Sven called on the hunters to retreat. However, no one listened to him. Then the monster's razor-sharp web beheaded one team member. And then the main character realized that these hunters were beginners. The guy was promised a lot of money for the escort, but only now did Sven understand why. The group leader rushed into the attack. Then he immediately used the skill Electric Discharge. The creature was immobilized for a while. All that remains is to deprive the enemy of his limbs. But instead, the team attacked the main body of the monster. The spider instantly came to its senses and dealt a fatal blow to the hunters. Only the leader of the group managed to avoid defeat. The man rushed into the attack again, but the monster's claw left him limp. With the last of his strength, the hunter used Electric Discharge once again. The spider rejected the leader of the group and immediately aimed at Sven. Now he, not a metahuman, will have to confront the monster alone. Meanwhile, in Nod Zone 17, where Sven belongs, branch manager Kim Bus received a call from the city. Beatrice, who created and maintains the protective barrier of the safe zone, has problems. For this reason, Kim Bus asked the secretary to call the Marlin hunting team. He also noticed that Sven still hadn't returned from hunting copper spiders, but he immediately dismissed his worries because he knew that the main character would not disappear. At this time, Sven was preparing to fight the monster. The guy had already come up with a strategy and took out his gun. But the monster attacked first. Avoiding being hit, the protagonist fired several bullets. The leader of the group Sven was accompanying was still alive, and he ridiculed the boy's attempt to hit the spider. However, the main character was shooting unusual bullets. They were bullets with nuclei, and they exploded in an instant, hitting the monster hard. Sven was angry that he was forced to use precious ammunition because of such liars. But you can't do anything anymore. The guy started cutting off the spider's limbs. Then he beheaded him. Sven guessed that the rookie team had lied about their rank. They informed Nod that they had defeated a rank 18 salamander, presenting its skin as proof. However, the creature sheds that skin itself once a year. Sven's anger was so inflamed that he was ready to kill the leader of the lying group. And suddenly the boy heard a voice that prompted him to do it. Deceiving Nod is tantamount to committing a crime, but the main character had no right to administer justice. Besides, the liar got what he deserved. He, like his comrades, died at the hands of a copper spider. But Sven didn't understand what that voice in his head was. Returning to Zone 17, the protagonist immediately began searching for the culprits. And he thought Jamie's secretary had set it all up. The girl made excuses, saying that she herself had been deceived. And Sven admitted that he still cooperates with Nod only through the branch director. And he also said that he hates metahumans and their superiority. This confession was heard by Songhu, a hunter who had just arrived at Kim Bus's request. Using physical reinforcement, he silenced Sven with one blow, and then, pressing him against the wall, he threatened to kill him. Fortunately, the huntress Park In-jeon came with him. She reminded her friend of the consequences of attacking a member of Nod. The girl, like Songhu, is a rank 17 metahuman. Her skill is vision enhancement. In-jeon clearly upholds the rules of Nod, the only guild fighting to maintain peace in the desert. And thanks to her, Songhu let the main character go. At this moment, the leader of the Marlin group, John Changsu, appeared. And now the whole team was assembled. Only this moment alarmed the main character. Sven was also invited to talk to the branch director of the 17th zone. It turns out that Beatrice, who is maintaining the protective barrier of Guangmoon City, has deteriorated. She sometimes loses consciousness and then the barrier disappears. At first, the townspeople defended themselves against monsters when they happened. But when a high-ranking monster appeared, many residents died. To prevent this, the metahumans of Guangmoon decided to ask for help from the desert people. The situation with Beatrice is getting complicated. This time, they promise citizenship in the city for acting as bait until the barrier disappears. Usually, obtaining residency in Guangmyong is practically impossible, and so the entire Marlin team agreed to complete the task. Sven also expressed a desire to participate in this. The hunters set off for Guangmoon the very next morning. Sven knew well how to bypass all the high-ranking monsters. Although team leader John Chan-Su is ranked 10th, it's not worth wasting your energy. And so the main character quickly laid out a path on the map and the hunters set off. But before long, Sven stopped. He noticed the monster's trail. The boy asked Injon to use the vision enhancement skill to confirm his own guesses. And it turned out that a horde of hobgoblins was passing nearby. They were moving in the opposite direction, but when they heard the scent of the hunters, they changed it. Since the team only has 2 melee fighters, Sven advised moving towards the bridge. This way, the hunters will take an advantageous position for battle. The team left immediately. Seonghu was forced to carry Injon using physical reinforcement. He didn't like obeying the guide's instructions at all, but there was no time to argue, as the horde was approaching very quickly. Hobgoblins are of the 18th rank. Although alone, these monsters will be weaker than the copper spider. Their strength lies in numbers and instant communication. All the way to the bridge, Sven thought about strategy. 2 hunters with physical boosts of rank 17 and 10 are not so bad. If Seonghu and Chan-Su can face the monsters in the middle of the bridge, then everything will end well. However, the main character was worried about the second change, that is, he and Injon. They are unlikely to be of any help in battle. So Sven decided it was better not to interfere. Having reached the bridge, the protagonist took up a position in the rear, defending Inshin. The hunters prepared for battle. Shansu activated physical enhancement. He destroyed several hobgoblins with one blow. Seonghu also tried to keep up. And then Sven realized that he had been worried for nothing. He had never seen Shansu in battle before, even though it was not the first time he had been his guide. But at that moment, a hobgoblin slipped behind the hunters. He grabbed Injon by the hair and was about to strike with the axe. Seonghu wanted to come to the rescue, but the main character assured him that he would cope. Then Sven rushed to the girl and saved her from the hobgoblin's blow. The monster's attention switched to the boy. Swinging his axe, he approached the protagonist. At the moment of the second strike, Incheon arrived to help. She stabbed the creature in the back with a dagger. Then the main character instantly knocked the monster off its feet and beheaded it. At this point, Songhu and Chansu had successfully completed the battle against the horde. The group leader approved the guide's decision to deal with the monster alone. After all, if one of them came to help, the rest of the hobgoblins would not be able to be held back. Seonghu was not thrilled with what happened, and Sven scolded himself for not doing the task properly. Despite this, the team moved on. Fortunately, they did not encounter any more monsters on their way, and soon the hunters saw the protective dome of the city of Guangmoon. As they approached the barrier, Xionghu and Injon couldn't contain their surprise. This was the first time they had seen such a thing. The girl brought her hand closer to the dome, and then Xionghu instantly pushed her forward. Touching the barrier, Injon was very scared. However, within a second, I realized that nothing terrible had happened. What's more, she didn't feel anything at all, and that was strange. It was hard to believe that this very dome had been protecting the city from monsters for decades. The hunters moved forward. They all crossed the barrier without any problems. But then another obstacle awaited them in the form of a wall. There were guards standing in front of the gate. They immediately asked the hunters for their documents. Shansu introduced himself and showed his passport. Identification was successful. Then the guard gave each person a bracelet. Wearing it is a must. This thing contains a core that explodes if the city rules are violated. Hunters were also warned not to leave their rooms after sunset. This is because locals are worried when desert people walk the streets. All these measures only confirm the strained relations between these two worlds. Eventually, the hunters entered Guangmoon. They saw a completely different life there. People were just walking through the streets, drinking coffee and resting on benches. It was as if the end of the world had passed this area by. Taking the chance, Sven decided to look for some useful things. The rest of the team went to the apartments. Already at the entrance to the store, the main character almost collided with a girl who was in a big hurry. She didn't even notice she lost her document. Sven picked up the card but didn't have time to give it to its owner. Then the boy concentrated on his own goal. He purchased 4 diving kits. Then I noticed the explosives in the window. It turns out that this thing is capable of blinding the affected person for several minutes. The guy decided that this would also be useful. At that moment, the same girl, Marie, who had lost her access card, rushed into the store. Sven happily returned the lost item to its owner. Marie, as a senior research scientist in the Research and Development Department, wanted to say thank you somehow. She thought Sven was a metahuman, but the guy denied it. That girl was very surprised because she felt a signal that said the opposite. However, Marie was unable to determine the hero's skills. Sven was very angry because he knew for sure that the girl was wrong. However, even when he returned to his chambers, he did not stop thinking about it. He always wanted to become a metahuman. He looked for signs of awakening, but nothing came of it. Having abandoned vain hopes, the main character decided to become a guide, and only now does it turn out that he does have a chance to make his dream come true. The next morning, Marlin's team set out to defend the city. Other hunters also arrived. There are 10 seconds left before the barrier disappears. Everyone prepared for a fierce fight against the demonic monsters. The members of Marlin's team decided to listen to the main character's instructions again, and Sven set a priority survival. As soon as the barrier dissipated, the hunters rushed towards the giant insects. From the first seconds of the collision of people with demonic beasts, victims appeared. One of the hunters tried to return to the city to save himself. However, the guards stopped him, cold-bloodedly shooting him. Meanwhile, Marlin's team was running as fast as they could away from the concentration of monsters. It has long been clear why Guangmoon needs desert mercenaries. They are all just bait to distract the monsters. The city's high-ranking metahumans can handle the monsters themselves. However, they decided to use the powers of the desert people. Suddenly, Injon reported that she saw a cluster of monsters ahead. These are rank 9 raptors. One such monster is capable of destroying an entire horde of hobgoblins in a second, and therefore, it is not wise to engage in battle with these beasts. Now it's time to use the dive kits you purchased. Sven found a swamp and dived into it. Although the feeling was not pleasant, it was the only way the heroes would be able to hide and survive. The Marlin hunters lay patiently in the swamp while a bloody battle raged on land. And when the screams died down, Sven crawled out of hiding and made sure that the monsters were gone. Now the hunters must survive until the barrier is restored. And the main character knows that if he follows the raptors, the probability of encountering other monsters is minimal. And so the team went in search of shelter. The hunters stopped at an old dilapidated house. It seemed that the worst was behind us. But suddenly Sven heard a strange sound. Everyone was alarmed. Injon instantly turned off the flashlight. It was dark outside and practically nothing was visible. But within a few seconds, the protagonist noticed the glowing eyes of the demonic beast. A black praying mantis appeared through the large window. No one understood why Sven was so scared, but it turned out that it was not that simple. There is no data about this monster. It is unknown what his rank and weaknesses are. And the fact that the black mantis dared to enter the raptor's territory suggests that it is stronger than them. And it is likely that the rank of this monster is significantly higher than 9th. The monster studied the hunters for several minutes, then hid in the darkness. The team took a defensive position. Injon instantly activated vision enhancement and began searching for the monster. But no matter how hard she tried, nothing worked. Suddenly, Stan heard the sound of approaching, and in a moment, the black praying mantis was behind him. Fortunately, the boy managed to put his dagger in front of him and block the monster's attack. Sven was not injured, but the strong impact sent him flying a considerable distance. Besides, the boy dropped his dagger and couldn't find it in the darkness. And it never happened, because Injon noticed that the praying mantis was about to attack the hero from above. At the last moment, Hansu rushed to Sven's aid, and he managed to stop the attack. The team leader ordered the main character to retreat. He accepted the fight. Only the advantage was on the monster's side because of the darkness. To help, Sven threw a glowing core at the captain. Seong-hoo wanted to join the fight, but the team leader objected. And it's clear why. If these two start brandishing weapons in a confined space, they could harm each other. The team leader raised his status to full, and then the monster attacked. It wasn't easy for Chance to block the shots, but he managed. Instead, the mantis defended itself, seemingly effortlessly. The confrontation continued, and Chance's forces were running out. The monster pressed. Then, unexpectedly, the mantis pierced the group leader's leg with its front claw. Seong-hoo couldn't stand it and rushed to help, but he didn't have time to strike. The monster threw the attacker so that he crashed into the wall. Shansu's attention momentarily shifted to his friend. And at that moment, the praying mantis poked the leader in the shoulder. It was a defeat. Now only Sven and Injon remain. The monster's predatory gaze immediately focused on the next victims. The protagonist feverishly looked for the mantis's weak spot. He was still hoping for a miracle. As the monster approached, Sven drew attention to the part that connects the belly to the chest. He believed that this was the same weak point. Gathering courage, the protagonist rushed forward and plunged his dagger into the target. However, the blade bounced back without even leaving a scratch. Instead, the mantis gave the attacker a good beating. Then the creature approached the protagonist and stuck its claws next to the victim's head. Sven realized that this was the end. But the monster was in no hurry to kill him. He leaned towards the boy and looked at him as if he wanted to fill himself with that unspeakable fear. Saliva dripped from the praying mantis's mouth, and Sven, closing his eyes, prepared to become food. But suddenly there was a strange clicking sound. The praying mantis also reacted. And then he abruptly jumped up and disappeared from the building. Sven suggested that this was how demonic beings communicated with each other. He had never heard a sound like that before. Injun was equally confused by what had happened. But each of them was glad to be alive. Only now did the main character notice that the bracelets on their hands were shining. And this means that the city's barrier has already been restored. Hansu and Songhu were badly hurt, and so the hunters intended to return to Guangmoon as soon as possible. After the barrier was activated, city guards began counting the dead. They didn't find a single living desert inhabitant, but that didn't surprise anyone. However, suddenly the guard noticed someone approaching the city. It was the Marlin team. They managed to reach Guangmoon. The hunters were immediately given proper medical treatment. Only Injan remained unharmed, and so now the girl took care of the group leader's recovery and made him eat well. A few days later, the deputy director of the city administration visited the hospital. He wanted to talk to Hansu alone, and within a moment, the rest of the team was speculating about this conversation in the hallway. Seonghu believed that the deputy had arrived to discuss the reward. He never doubted for a moment that he would receive citizenship. Sven, on the other hand, believed that this visit did not bode well. At this point, Deputy Ginson expressed his surprise that the entire team had survived. Hansu admitted that it was all thanks to the guide. A few minutes after the deputy left the room, the rest of the team learned the reason for the visit. Songhu could not accept that the city administration had only granted him 2 citizenships. And he was just mad that Sven and Injan got them. In fact, this was the decision made by Changsu. The group leader believes that he and Songhu will still have a chance to obtain citizenship. Sven understood his friend's indignation, but he was not going to give up his reward. The argument ended with Songhu leaving the room, slamming the door. Hansu assured the boy that he would understand everything and calm down, but the main character was wary. The boy's anxiety did not leave him even when night fell, and for good reason. As soon as Songhu was convinced that the leader was asleep, he immediately began to act. He approached Hansu's bed and stabbed him in the chest. The group leader grabbed the traitor by the throat with his last strength, but there was nothing he could do. In a few minutes, it was all over. Songhu guessed that Sven had heard everything. He instantly approached the guide's bed and quickly stabbed him. However, the main character was not there. At that moment, a grenade fell next to the attacker. After the explosion, Songhu lost his ability to see. And then Sven attacked him from behind. The guy wrapped his legs around the killer and stabbed him in the neck. Then a familiar voice sounded in the protagonist's head, ordering him to kill Songha. Now Sven realized that back then, on the hunt against the copper spider, he had failed. At this moment, Songhu pressed the main character against the wall, and it was so strong that Sven could barely breathe. Then the attacker was overcome by a bitter realization. He would not survive after being shot in the neck. But what annoyed Songhu the most was that a guy with no skills had dealt the fatal blow. In a few seconds, the scoundrel fell to the ground dead. After that, Sven felt a tremor in his body and a sudden surge of strength. He realized he was waking up. Then the boy felt dizzy and was sure that he would soon lose consciousness. So he hurried to find the murder weapon and instantly threw the bloody knife out the window. At that moment, Hansu called him. Surprisingly, he was still alive. A few days later, Sven appeared in court. The bloody scene was discovered by hospital guards who heard strange sounds. At the time of the crime's discovery, the protagonist was already unconscious. Songhu died of arterial bleeding. And the group leader also lost a lot of blood after being wounded and died on the spot. Injan was cleared of all suspicions because she had an alibi. And so now the jury hoped to hear about the situation from Sven. The main character reported that a stranger had burst into the room and committed an attack. The city senator had no desire to delve into the affairs of the desert dwellers, so he believed the boy. But the deputy emphasized that despite the significant amount of blood in the room, none was found in the corridor, and therefore he suspects the main character of committing the attack. In his defense, Sven said he had no motive. He wouldn't risk the citizenship he had just acquired. Besides, the guy isn't a metahuman, so he's unlikely to be able to defeat 2 men with skills. And it seemed quite logical. But there is one but. After the injuries suffered, a normal person would have already died. Sven, on the other hand, recovered quite quickly, and therefore the deputy doubts that the guy has no abilities. And to check it out, Jinsen called Marie from the Research and Development Department. The main character turned pale. It was this girl who claimed that he was a metahuman even before he woke up, and therefore there is no doubt that she will confirm this in court. And then, instead of citizenship, the main character will be accused of murdering his comrades. Time seemed to stand still for Sven when Marie approached. She took the boy by the hands and used her skills. Waiting for the terrible verdict, the main character closed his eyes. Then that same tragic night appeared in his memories. When Sven threw away the murder weapon, he was called by the team leader. With his last strength, he asked the hero to escape before Songhu killed him. Sven couldn't hold back his tears then. Even in the last minutes of his life, Hansu took care of him. When the group leader fell silent, the protagonist felt a familiar pulsation in his body. The feeling was the same as when I woke up, only this time it was much stronger. Sven absorbed Hansu's skills. A blast wave swept through the boy's body and he fainted. Meanwhile, Marie let go of the hero's hands. She was ready to announce the result. All of Sven's nerve cells tensed at that moment. That girl said that the main character is not a metahuman. The deputy director of the city administration did not expect such a turn of events. He was certain that Sven was the murderer. The hero himself was no less surprised. Then the director of the administration suggested checking the alibis of everyone who participated in the defense of the city. It is obvious that the reason for the attack was to obtain citizenship. Suddenly, Sven announced that he was giving up the privilege he had received and wanted to return to the desert. From the very beginning, he believed that the leader of the group, Jiangsu and Injong, were worthy of citizenship. But since this became the reason for a brutal murder, the hero does not want to put himself in danger. This statement cleared Sven of all suspicion, and he was released. After the trial, the boy said goodbye to Injong and set off into the desert. But on the way, Marie caught up with him. She wasn't going to ask the hero why he killed his comrades. Marie believed that he could not have done otherwise. The girl was interested in something else, and for this reason, she did not betray the main character. Marie sensed special signals from the boy. They are completely different from those that are usually found. Metahumans are divided into 6 categories based on their abilities. These are physical enhancement, supernatural powers, magical technologies, taming evil, psychopathy, and magic. However, there are those who defy classification. Senator Beatrice is one of them. Only it is capable of creating a protective barrier covering an area of tens of square kilometers. Beatrice gives off special signals that are similar to those Marie felt from the main character. That is why the girl is convinced that Sven has great potential. Beatrice has been maintaining a barrier around the city for decades. Thanks to this, the people of Guangmoon felt the taste of life again. But the senator's health has deteriorated significantly. She barely sleeps and sacrifices herself for the sake of others. Having covered for Sven at trial, Marie hopes that she did it for a reason. If special metahumans unite, they will probably be able to defeat the demonic beasts. The main character was somewhat stunned by all these words. Having mastered the physical enhancement skill, the guy decided that he belonged to the power category. However, Marie assured that Sven could save humanity if he developed his potential. At this moment, the main character looked at the Beatrice Tower. The senator immediately turned away, and it seemed to the boy that their eyes met for a moment. After talking to Marie, Sven continued on his way. A lot has happened in the last few days. The death of comrades, a double awakening, judgment, a voice in your head urging you to kill metahumans. All this made Sven's head feel like it was about to explode. But Marie's claim that he could save humanity was beyond the realm of possibility, and so the main character decided to focus on his reality. The main thing for a desert man is survival. Upon awakening, Sven decided to test his strength. That's why he chose the former city of Mockdong for training. But there, a demonic beast was already waiting for him. A rank 16 poisonous cat jumped out of a dark alley baring its teeth. With furious speed, he pounced on the boy. The hero managed to dodge. Sven's eyes began to search for a weapon for protection. And a moment later, I noticed a sewer hatch nearby. Activating the physical reinforcement, the protagonist tore off the cover. He used it to protect himself from the monster's next attack. Then Sven struck the monster, and behind him is another one. The battle was gaining momentum, but within a few minutes it was all over. Sven won. Then the boy took out his knife and cut open the beast. That's where the reward for your efforts was, the kernels. Having gathered everything together, the main character continued on his journey. He managed to defeat a 16th 8th rank opponent, which is already a great achievement in determining the level of strength. Suddenly, Sven noticed fresh blood around the corner. However, the victim's body was nowhere to be found. The boy guessed that this was the work of a murderer. At that moment, something flashed behind me. Sven prepared for battle and took out his knife. But when he looked into the dilapidated building, he only saw frightened children. The guy realized that these were residents of Mockdong. Then there was a rustling sound from behind. An armed stranger was already rushing at Sven. Fortunately, the main character had time to react. He didn't want to harm the locals, so he stopped the attacker with a punch to the stomach. However, after that, a masked stranger pointed a gun at Sven. The kids rushed to their defender. Once under the gun, the main character was forced to turn to the wall. But he immediately announced that he was a metahuman and had no intention of harming anyone. To prove it, Sven punched through a wall with one punch. Then he emphasized that Nod would avenge the attack on his representative. The stranger did not lower his weapon even at the risk of punishment from Zone 17. Sven assured me that he just wanted to stay in a safe place for a few days. Then I turned around and realized that the stranger wouldn't shoot. His weapon is loaded with a nuclear weapon. No one will use this resource in vain. The stranger agreed to help if Sven would give up all the kernels he had as collateral. The main character fulfilled the condition, and only then did the masked guy shoot into the wall to show Sven that he was wrong. This gun is capable of firing many times with a single bullet. And this is thanks to magical technology that increases the energy efficiency of a single charge. After that, the stranger took off his mask and introduced himself as Aaron. The guy led Sven at gunpoint to his shelter. And it turned out that the residents of Mockdong live quite high up. It's easier to hide from murderers that way. Finally, the heroes reached the main room. Aaron immediately reported the situation to Mockdong leader Reia. Using the public address system, the woman announced the arrival of a guest from Nod. Everyone reacted immediately. They couldn't take their eyes off Sven. Reia explained that Mockdong is currently at war with the assassins, and therefore there's a shortage of provisions. Accordingly, at the moment, guests are unnecessary for them. But Sven offered to help. In the desert, you have to fight not only against demonic beasts. A great threat is posed by killers who have rejected all humanity and hunt their own kind. Moreover, they consume human flesh. At the moment, there are about a dozen cannibals left, although there used to be 100. The Mockdong hunters managed to destroy most of them, but they also suffered many casualties. The main problem is that there are metahumans among the killers. Most of them are weak. However, the cannibal leader has already caused Mockdong a lot of trouble. After hearing everything about the situation, the protagonist decided to take on the task of destroying the murderers. And in exchange for this, he asked for an introduction to a local magic technician. Reia wanted more than anything to destroy the cannibal killers, so she agreed to Sven's offer. The boy was taken to the magic technician under the close supervision of Aaron. But when the hero saw that it was still a very young girl, Minnie, he was very surprised. The guy examined the devices lying on the table, and Minnie immediately warned that they were failures. The gun that Sven picked up is not able to withstand the recoil of the shot, and Aaron was already convinced of this. Then the hero's attention was attracted by a melodious sword, and Minnie called it a failure. Not listening to the girl's warnings, Sven wanted to buy it. The guy poured the kernels onto the table, but Minnie immediately asked to take it away, as she was not going to sell failed inventions. Sven disagreed, believing that the girl should simply continue creating artifacts. At the moment when the main character tried to move the core towards Minnie, he inadvertently touched the girl's hands. Then they both froze in place. Information seemed to pour into Sven's head. Aaron didn't like this moment at all. Reia also noted that the age difference between Sven and Minnie was too big for courtship. The main character pulled his hands away and was indignant at what they thought of him. Then a voice sounded again in the boy's head, calling for him to kill and take away Minnie's abilities. Sven almost dropped his new sword. After that, the main character decided to rest. Alone in the room, Sven consoled himself with the hope that the voice in his head would soon disappear. That's how it usually happens. However, as soon as the boy fell asleep, Songhoo and the same voice appeared in his dreams. Then Minnie had a dream. Sven woke up in a cold sweat. This horror did not end until dawn. Having discarded all memories, the protagonist set off on a mission. He and Aaron occupied an empty building near the location of the cannibal killers. From there, it was clearly visible how the enemy's security was organized. Aaron also said that you should be careful with the boss of the killers. Once the boy almost got caught by him. That scoundrel's specialty was speed. Remembering this, Aaron set about assembling the sniper rifle. This weapon was made by Minnie. The girl was unable to finish the invention for a long time due to a lack of cores. But thanks to Sven, she did it. And so now Aaron has a weapon that shoots bullets and is practically silent. The protagonist also decided to prepare his sword. This weapon contains a hole for a core. The more cores, the better the sword. However, Minnie could not make more holes because that would break the structure of the weapon. But Sven has a way out. He has a clean core, acquired from Guangmoon. It is special because it contains the energy of 10 ordinary nuclei. Aaron was amazed. He has never been to the city, and not long after the boy was born, Mockdong was destroyed by demonic beasts. This city was once part of Seoul and was home to 10 million people. Mockdong was much larger than Guangmoon. However, now only ruins remain of it. Aaron admitted that he would really like to live in the city. And then the main character remembered how much Songhoo wanted this. Putting aside unpleasant memories, Sven focused on the task at hand. The first thing he did was to test his new sword. The hero threw a brick and with one casual swing cut it in half. The preparation was finished. Sven decided to attack the killers at night. In fact, most of all, he wants to test the level of his own strength, and destroying the villains is just a bonus. When it was dark enough and most of the cannibals fell asleep, the main character began to act. Aaron's task is to destroy the guards in the towers, and the hero himself took care of the rest. Sven quietly crept up. He easily dealt with the 2 guards on the street. But an unforeseen situation occurred. One of the guards on the tower caught the spotlight after Eren shot him. Light turned into the assassin leader's window and woke him up. Meanwhile, Sven had already entered the room. Another cannibal was killed. The protagonist felt how easy it was for a metahuman to deal with an ordinary person. At that moment, the leader of the assassins, Raymond, appeared behind Sven. He approached very quickly and knocked the hero off his feet. Having pinned Sven to the ground with his knee, Raymond was going to find out who he was and where he came from. But at that moment, the villain sensed that the main character was a metahuman. As if scalded, the cannibal jumped away from Sven. But within a few seconds, he recovered and threw the guy out the window. Eren was closely watching everything that was happening. Following Sven, the leader of the cannibals jumped out. Fortunately, the main character managed to escape the attack from above. Other cannibals rushed to Raymond's aid. At that moment, Eren started shooting. The target was not hit. The leader of the assassins instantly identified the sniper's location. Eren continued to shoot, but Raymond was too fast and managed to avoid being hit. Then the scoundrel immediately ordered his subjects to get rid of Eren. But the guy had already prepared for such a turn of events. He carefully placed numerous traps throughout the building and then climbed onto the roof himself. Meanwhile, the main enemy rushed into the attack, but Sven turned out to be too slow for him. Raymond managed to knock the sword out of the protagonist's hands, and he realized that the boy still didn't know how to use his own strength at all. The leader of the killers invited the hero to join the cannibal team, but Sven refused. Then Raymond, confident in his victory, named the main character a future dish. The battle continued. Barely escaping harm, Sven tried to calm down. He has no experience fighting metahumans, but he has fought demonic beasts countless times. And so the hero tried to imagine that a beast in human form was standing before him. In this way, Sven hopes to analyze the enemy's behavior and find a way to win. Raymond's subjects had already reached the top floor and were trying with all their might to get to the roof. However, Eren closed the door too tightly, and now he was waiting for the right opportunity to shoot the leader of the killers. Meanwhile, Sven realized that the enemy's strengths were kicks and insane speed. The main character didn't even have time to think about attacking, as he was forced to dodge the entire time. During Raymond's next kick, Sven dodged and tried to close the distance. He thought that perhaps the enemy's hands were not that strong. However, the cannibal leader instantly delivered a knee strike. Then Raymond rushed towards the protagonist to deliver the decisive blow. But at that moment, Eren shot at him and hit the scoundrel in the side. The wounded cannibal became very angry. And then I decided to eat the sniper first so that he wouldn't get in the way of eating the main course, which was Sven. Dodging the next shots, the villain quickly reached the sniper's ambush site. And at that moment, Eren noticed that the energy of the cores in the rifle was running out. Without delay, Raymond performed a powerful jump, and within a few seconds he reached the roof of the building. Eren couldn't believe his eyes. He tried to cover himself from the cannibal's attack with his rifle, but it flew into pieces. Then the boy feverishly took out his crossbow and began shooting at the killer. However, Raymond skillfully dodged each of the arrows. Then the scoundrel got as close as possible to the boy. Eren fired another shot, but this time the cannibal leader managed to catch the arrow right in front of him. Then he instantly slipped behind the young man, and in a moment Eren was lying face down. The boy could do nothing but scream, but it was a pleasant sound to Raymond. He was in no hurry to kill the boy. The cannibal wanted to listen to Eren scream while he ate him. But this was not destined to happen. At the last moment, the main character appeared. He destroyed the rest of the gang as he climbed the stairs to the roof. Now Raymond was left alone, but the murderer was not upset because he was hoping for a delicious dinner. He let go of the boy and focused on the stronger opponent. But suddenly, Eren attacked him from behind. The young man stabbed the scoundrel in the neck. Sven reacted instantly and rushed to the attack. With one blow, the main character deprived the cannibal of his leg. Raymond was furious. He lost his basic strength. Then Sven heard the voice in his head again. He ordered the metahuman to be killed, and this time the protagonist did not resist. With one blow of his sword, Sven finished off the cannibal murderer. Immediately after this, the hero felt a strong pulsation in his body and fainted. When he regained consciousness, the boy was already in the car. Eren was walking nearby. The young man was very scared when Sven fainted, and he himself pulled the main character into the car. While he was sleeping, Eren gathered all the things the killers had stolen from Mockdong. Despite his weak appearance, the young man was full of energy. He finished packing his things and got behind the wheel. The mood was wonderful. The heroes went to Mockdong. But suddenly, an alarm signal appeared in the sky. Red color reported high-level danger. It was the Mockdong shelter signal, and Eren knew it very well. Half an hour earlier, Reia had been informed that a crowd of animals was moving in a northwesterly direction. Looking through the binoculars, the woman guessed that they were all running away from something. And this is something very scary. Reia looked up and froze in place. What she saw was like the demon that caused the apocalypse. With just one flap of his wings, he can sweep away an entire army of people. Everyone who experienced the appearance of Belkist will never forget it. And now, many years later, he has reappeared. Aaron pressed the gas with all his might to get to Mockdong faster. He knew that the red color of the signal indicated the appearance of an S-level demonic beast. And although no one could handle him, the young man did not give up hope of saving at least someone. Instead, Sven thought more soberly. He understood that the signal had been given for everyone who could to flee without looking back. The main character tried to persuade the young man to turn the car around, but he didn't listen. When Sven tried to stop the car himself, a pack of demonic beasts rushed at them from the side. There were so many frightened creatures that they overturned the car. Sven lost consciousness again. But when he came to, Aaron was not there. The main character realized that the young man had indeed gone to the Mockdong shelter. Then Sven flipped the car onto its wheels and mentally asked Aaron for forgiveness. Survival is the most important thing in the desert. That's why the main character went to Area 17 to report everything. But he hadn't driven a kilometer before images of the residents of Mockdong appeared in his memories. Pity enveloped Sven's heart, and despite his instinct for self-preservation, he still went to the shelter. Meanwhile, Aaron had already reached his goal. But there he found a terrible picture. All his acquaintances were already dead. Even the leader of Reia died before his eyes. Aaron could not hold back his tears. But at that moment, Belkist approached him. The young man froze in place with fear. The demon leaned towards the boy as if studying him. Then he prepared to attack. But at that moment, a clicking sound was heard. Belkist reacted, and when a portal appeared in the sky, he flew there in an instant. Aaron remained alive. However, I didn't feel much happiness. Now he is alone. The young man continued his search for at least someone alive, but there were only corpses around. Hope had left him, but he continued to look for many. Suddenly, Aaron noticed that someone had thrown all the food out of the refrigerator, and he realized that it was not just like that. The young man hurried to open the door, mentally praying that Minnie was there alive. And so it happened. The girl was indescribably happy to see her friend and threw herself into his arms. Now these two need to find a new shelter, and they weren't going to delay. But already at the exit from the parking lot, the main character was waiting for the children. He was incredibly happy to see Aaron and Minnie alive. The fact that these two managed to survive a monster of the disaster rank was simply a miracle. Aaron said that he had seen Belkist. However, he studied it and then disappeared into the portal. Sven remembered that he had the same situation during his encounter with the black praying mantis. But I thought it was just a coincidence. Realizing that the children had nowhere to go, Sven offered to go with him to Nod. Now he's going to assemble his team. And the hero decided to invite the children to his place. Aaron could not hold back his tears. He didn't expect anything better. Along the way, the main character told a little about Zone 17, to which he belongs. But Minnie was more interested in the energy processing station the heroes were passing by. And the information that garbage can be turned into energy completely stunned her. Taking the opportunity, Sven decided to satisfy the girl's curiosity and stopped at the station. Minnie did not hide her admiration. The girl touched one of the energy blocks and read information about the mechanism of action. This is how the magical technology's skill works. Sven was glad that such a talented person was now with him. The main character said that the station area was abandoned after it turned into ruins. Suddenly, Aaron interrupted Sven's story. He noticed a deer among the tall grass. Hoping to hunt an animal, the boy loaded his crossbow. However, the arrow missed. Aaron was simply furious over the defeat. But then Sven took the hunt upon himself and ran towards the deer. With lightning speed, the main character caught up with the animal, and within a few minutes he brought the prey on his shoulders. Sven's insane speed did not go unnoticed. Aaron recognized the skills of the cannibal killer Raymond, and from the expression on the boy's face, Sven guessed it. But he asked Aaron not to worry about it and promised to explain everything when the opportunity arose. The main character would also prefer to keep it a secret for now. At the moment when the acceleration skill was activated, Sven understood the essence of his abilities. He is able to absorb the abilities of other metahumans. The hero was distracted from his thoughts by Minnie, who exclaimed with delight upon seeing the windmills. The girl instantly read the information from them as well. And the fact that Minnie managed to survive is simply a miracle. The girl, like a sponge, absorbs new information. And after that, she had a brilliant idea about increasing energy output. And so Minnie wanted to meet the person in charge of the wind turbines. Sven didn't object. Soon the heroes reached the building of Zone 17. It was a former football stadium. First, Sven went to the reception. Secretary Jamie was very happy to see that the main character was alive, and immediately reported this to manager Kim Bus. Branch 17 already knew about the deaths of Jiangsu and Seonghu from Incheon, and also that the murder weapon was found 2 kilometers from the crime scene. only there were no fingerprints on it. The protagonist guessed that Marie from Guangmoon's research and development department had worked on this. When Sven was delayed on his return to the Nod Zone, everyone thought he had died too. Ignoring this, the protagonist invited Jamie for a private conversation. Then he reported that the Mockdong shelter had been destroyed. Such situations are not uncommon in the desert, so Jamie was not surprised. But when she heard that Belkist had appeared there, she froze in horror. This demon has not appeared on the Korean peninsula since the global disaster. Sven decided to change the information about what happened a little. He said that Belkist destroyed all the residents of the Mockdong shelter, as well as a group of killers. The hero also suggests that the demon tracks people by body temperature. Aaron and Minnie managed to survive only because they hid in the refrigerator. This kind of information is very important, so Sven wanted to be rewarded for it. Jamie offered the hero 40 cores. It was a good price, but Sven needs something else. He asked the secretary to find a metahuman for his team. And only then did he admit that he had woken up. Jamie was stunned. The best guide in Area 17 has now become a metahuman. Moreover, he has about a 15th rank, which is already the middle class among people with abilities. Sven also expressed a desire to take children to his team. Aaron is a very capable boy. He will be able to master close combat skills and become a guide. Minnie is a magical technologist by her abilities, and therefore she will produce artifacts for the main character's team. The branch manager soon arrived. He was sincerely glad that Sven had finally woken up, but the main character asked to keep it a secret. Booze didn't understand why, because the attitude towards metahumans was much better at Nod's main office. But Sven explained that his hero was not Nod, but the manager of Zone 17. Besides, the fact that Minnie is a magic technician is also better not to spread. Otherwise, Nod's head office will take her to develop attacking artifacts. And Bus understood this well. Then Sven asked that his team receive tasks, and he would like these to be tasks to eliminate murderers. The hero's desire to hunt people slightly stunned the branch manager. However, Sven had good reasons for this, and now he asked Jamie to gather all the people of Nod. The secretary instantly fulfilled the hero's request. No one understood what all this was for, and Sven didn't explain anything. He just wanted to find a meta-human for his team. Taking each person's hand, Sven hoped he would feel the one he needed. It was the turn of the red-haired Yusin. The girl expressed her displeasure most about the incomprehensible gathering. But when Sven took her hand, they both felt a flash of light inside. Yusin was indignant and instantly pulled her hand away. And the main character realized that she was a meta-human. To make sure of this, Sven asked the girl to give him her hand again. And although the strange feeling alarmed Yusin, she still fulfilled the request. This time Sven heard the same voice in his head. Throwing it away, the boy continued to study Yusin's signals. It dragged on for a while, and the girl thought Sven was being so flirtatious. Even Jamie thought so. However, the main character was interested in something completely different. He asked directly if Yusin had ever hunted demonic beasts, and the girl denied it. Not understanding anything, Sven apologized once again for the wasted time and asked everyone to disperse. But Yusin wasn't going to leave without getting an explanation for all this. She began to put pressure on the main character. Then Sven reminded him that such disrespect for a member of Nod would have consequences. And in the desert, only those who know their place survive. Sven didn't understand why these people allowed themselves to behave so impudently. And Jamie explained that they were subordinates of the hunter Kong Hans. And although he was expelled from Nod, the branch manager showed mercy. And Yusin is Hansu's wife. The subordinate girls reacted to the hero's remarks. One of the men pounced on Sven and grabbed him by the shoulders. But then an arrow hit his hand. It was Aaron who shot from the roof of the building. No one knew that the children were watching everything. The intervention in the situation made Yusin furious. The men rushed forward to reach the children, but Aaron fired another arrow, and it was with a core. Frightened by the explosion, the villains fell to the ground. But it was a false arrow. Even more furious, Yusin ordered Aaron to be taken away. But then Minnie came into play. The girl took out a bazooka. Only then, vowing revenge, did Yusin decide to retreat. Jamie reported all of these events to the branch manager. The man approved of Sven's attempt to find a person for the team in this way. Metahumans are known to sense each other. The secretary only regretted inviting Yusin. This girl does not participate in battles against demonic beasts. But the manager did not condemn her. And he suggested that Yusin simply hadn't discovered her talent yet, or was hiding her incredible abilities. But that's not the main thing. Bus wants to help Sven, so he decided to use his abilities. Meanwhile, the main character went to training with the children. Only this time he asked Minnie to better calculate the bazooka's radius of attack. Otherwise, he would be swept away too. While Sven was giving instructions, Aaron noticed someone approaching them. These were hunters. But no one knew about the training ground except Jamie and Bus. Sven is familiar with all the local hunters. Therefore, when three strangers approached, the hero became wary. And it wasn't Hans's people who threatened revenge on the children. The protagonist asked the strangers to stop and introduce themselves. But one of them, Jackie, said he couldn't do it in the middle of a secret mission. Then he added that the main character looks like a little scared kitten, and Aaron couldn't stand it. He stepped forward and threatened to rip out his tongue for such words. But then Jackie suddenly approached the boy. Noticing Aaron's tips made from cores, the man expressed his admiration. He wanted to touch the weapon, but the boy immediately took out a knife and advised him not to do so. Jackie backed away apologetically. All this looked very strange because Sven understood very well that it was Aaron who was in danger. The main character didn't even notice when the big guy from this team took out a sword. As soon as the girl began to reprimand Jackie for her behavior, Sven assumed that she was the leader. But then the same braggart admitted that they were sent by the manager of the 17th zone. Sven was stunned. But even more surprise came when it turned out that these strangers were a hidden team from Zone 17. Jackie is a leader. The girl's name is Kwon Seung. And cheers, Kim Han. This is the Code Blue command. Only then did Sven introduce himself, calling his team the Devourer. Everyone liked this name, and Sen and Khan decided to make fun of the name that Jackie came up with. They didn't like Code Blue. And anyway, they only recently learned that this phrase has a medical meaning, and so they didn't miss the opportunity to tease their leader with this. But it all came to an end in an instant when Jackie threatened his friends not to bring any more special dinners from the city. Sven named the team the Devourer because that word best describes his skills. The day before, the main character reported this to the manager, and he reacted as if he knew Sven would choose that name. Then Bus expressed the opinion that it was unlikely that a free hunter would be found in Area 17. And he confidently said that the Buxian shelter would be demolished in a month, and there will be a talented metahuman there. Sven didn't understand why Booz was talking as if he knew the future, and I already thought that the manager had the appropriate skills. However, the man refused. Finally, Bus asked Sven to take full advantage of the opportunity for growth. And that also sounded strange. But the guy decided to trust the manager. Jackie admitted that his team arrived to train the newcomers. This is exactly the possibility that Kim Bus was talking about. If Sven and the kids don't perform well for the day, the Code Blue team will simply swallow them up. The main character agreed. Everyone got ready. Aaron poured the rotting flesh of the demonic beast onto the ground. The disgusting smell made Jackie's team move away. They didn't yet know what the main character was up to. But in a moment they saw that in this way Sven had summoned a monster. A giant worm arrived at the smell. There are two ways to attack this beast. It devours its prey by emerging from the ground or attacks from above before diving back underground. It is easier to destroy a monster when it is on the surface, and for this you need to cut it in half. Sven made the first blow with his sword, but he managed to leave only a superficial wound. Then Aaron fired his crossbow and hit right in the same wound. The arrow with the core exploded and deepened it. The Code Blue team appreciated the ingenuity of the strategy. It was just believed that hunters would only irritate the beast with such minor wounds. The protagonist and Aaron continued to alternate attacks. Suddenly, Sven noticed that the worm was about to hide underground. But this could not be allowed, so Minnie took action. She took out a gun and shot the beast. The girl managed to hit him. Aaron also took the shot. But when the smoke from the explosion cleared, Sven discovered that the beast had managed to escape. Only the hero knew that he would return. Giant worms are very aggressive, so the monster is probably preparing for a counterattack. Within a few seconds, the main character felt a vibration in the ground and it was getting closer. The worm was moving towards him, but at the last moment it turned and headed towards Minnie. The girl froze in place, but fortunately Aaron managed to save her. When the worm emerged, instead of a victim, an explosive device was in its mouth, and Minnie instantly activated it. The monster's head shattered into pieces. At this moment, Sven attacked the monster again. He plunged his sword into the beast and was about to finish it off. Sensing danger, Jackie ordered the hero to let go of the sword. But he didn't listen. The worm began to move underground again, and he dragged Sven along with him. These were the beast's last movements, as it had been sufficiently wounded. However, by the time death occurs, he can drag the protagonist quite deeply. And in such an environment, Sven will die sooner than June. And so the boy concentrated all his strength. Powerful energy filled his body, and Sven made the cut. Meanwhile, Jackie instantly rushed to the hero's aid. He understood that no one was to blame for what had happened, but he didn't stop grumbling. All the hunters began to dig in the ground, hoping to find Sven. But suddenly, Minnie noticed something nearby. A hand appeared from under the ground. Jackie instantly pulled out the main character. Fortunately, he was okay. There, underground, Sven activated some ability unknown to him. And if it weren't for it, the boy would have died. But for this prank, he got a good kick from the Sen. The girl took revenge for Sven, making everyone worry about her. But the mood of the hunters changed when the boy showed the core of the worm. He managed to get it, although Jackie didn't understand why he had to take such a risk for a rank 13 monster. Aaron was on Sven's side. He knew well the need for the precious cores. Then Jackie remembered the strange artifacts of this team. He became curious about where these objects came from. And then Minnie confessed that she was a magical technologist. What stunned the members of the Code Blue team. People with such skills are extremely rare. The hunters agreed not to spread this information, as Nod's headquarters would not leave Minnie. Then Aaron introduced himself. Jackie paid him almost no attention. The leader was more interested in Sven's skills. He noticed in the boy abilities similar to those possessed by Hansu. However, there is something else. A lower body augmentation that belonged to the killer Raymond. In general, people can have several skills, but they are always similar in nature. But the main character's skills are completely different from each other. Sven didn't know how to explain it, but it didn't have to be. The hunters felt the vibration in the ground again. The second giant worm was approaching, and this time the Code Blue team will have to fight him. When the creature emerged from the ground, everyone saw that it was much larger than the previous one. Jackie and Khan prepared for battle. Sina's aloofness indicated that she was not the fighting type. Meanwhile, Jackie activated his ability. With a swing of his weapon, he performed the moonlight sword technique. The cutting energy cut through the worm in an instant. Sven and the children simply froze in place from the impressive sight. The protagonist realized that this power did not come from the core embedded in the sword, but from the metahuman. And it's like the power that awakened in Sven Underground. Although Jackie's attack was strong enough, it wasn't enough to kill the beast. The worm was about to escape, but then Han and Jackie, from both sides, stuck swords into the worm. It was quite difficult to contain the monster, but the hunters managed to damage the protective zone around the core. After that, Jackie prepared to deliver the decisive blow. He refocused his energy, and then he used the explosive sword technique. A powerful stream of energy hit the worm and tore it apart. It was just incredible. Sven could not contain his excitement. But suddenly, the worm vomited a disgusting green liquid. Jackie, who was standing nearby, was caught in this downpour. There were worm parasites in the liquid, and they were actively attached to the man. Sven and Aaron rushed to help. The main character could not believe that such a high-class hunter would make a rookie mistake. Everyone knows that to defeat a giant worm, you also need to get rid of its parasites. Even more surprise came when Sven realized that Jackie's comrades were not going to help. The team leader began to plead for help from Senin. That girl was also in no hurry. Only when Jackie promised to get a double portion of special dinners did Sina agree to help. The girl stood up and activated her ability. Within seconds, her energy healed the group leader. The presence of a healing-type hunter in the desert stunned the protagonist's entire team. In addition, Sina is able to use her abilities even at a distance. Now Sven demanded an explanation. And it turned out that this whole situation was planned to demonstrate the team's skills. Aaron's indignation knew no bounds. Minnie never stopped expressing her admiration for Sina. And the main character wanted to know how Jackie performs his incredible attacks. And the leader of the Code Blue team realized that Sven knew nothing about nuclear energy at all. And so, a long journey of mentorship awaits him. But Jackie recognized that the Eater team deserved the right to exist. Now it's time for training. Khan took on Aran. He is the one who specializes in close combat. From the first seconds, the boy realized that it wouldn't be easy. Jackie and Sina decided to explain the basics to Sven. It turns out that skills, which are divided into 6 categories, are internal human traits. Every person has core energy, and it varies in proportion to unique characteristics. If you combine these 2 components correctly, you can learn to release pure nuclear energy. This is exactly what Jackie did when he used the moonlight sword and explosive sword techniques. He gathered the energy of a pure nucleus into the weapon, then released it. Traits also affect the growth of core energy. If you understand how to use them, you can significantly increase your own energy. And since Sven can absorb people's skills, he will be able to combine their energy. And then its growth will accelerate significantly. After explaining the theory, Jackie asks Sven to hit the car with all his strength. The guy concentrated and executed the shot. There was a deep dent on the car. However, this was not what Jackie had expected. Then Sina began to explain. She is unsurpassed in managing her own energy. The girl ran her fingers along the hero's hand and explained that this is how energy moves. You need to feel this flow. Then she suggested concentrating the force on the tips of the fingers, thinking of releasing it like a goldfinch. Sven tried to do it, but when he snapped his fingers, he succeeded. The energy, like a bullet, flew past Jackie and left a hole in the car. The hunters could not believe their eyes. Sven managed to show an incredible result the first time. Jackie realized that the main character had huge potential, so he advised the guy to contact the Nose head office for training. Although Jackie himself and even the branch manager despise them, the fundamentals of the training there are excellent. Sven continued training until the evening, and he managed to master the moonlight sword technique. And later he performed explosive sword. Returning home, the main character noticed that Eren was gone. Minnie was also worried about her friend and had no idea where he was. After training with the Code Blue team, Eren became completely different from himself. Sven pushed away his excitement, but then he noticed a note on his own room door. Eren has been kidnapped and is being held captive. The same Kong Hansu decided to take revenge on Sven in this way for insulting his wife Yusin. The protagonist immediately set off for the address indicated in the note. Secretary Jamie helped me find the right place faster. When Sven entered the room, he saw Eren tied up and beaten. Behind him sat Kong Hansu and several other muscular men. Sven asked to let the child go, but the main villain just approached and hit the former guide. Then Eren shouted not to touch the main character. But for this, he also received a strong blow from Hansu. Sven's anger flared. The same voice sounded in his head. He encouraged Sven to show his skills and put the villain in his place, and the main character gave in. When Hansu swung to strike again, Sven stopped his fist. The surprise of those present knew no bounds. After that, the main character politely asked to let the child go. At the same time, he squeezed the scoundrel's fist tighter and tighter. Hansu felt a sharp pain, but he did not give in. The main character was going to get a knife and end it. But suddenly, Eren pushed him. The boy asked Sven not to do this. Having mastered his rage, the main character obeyed. He let go of his opponent's hand, but was immediately hit in the face. Then Sven apologized. Hansu warned the boy not to raise his head again and released the hostage. The scoundrel's subjects did not understand what was going on. They insisted on teaching the main character a lesson, but Hansu quickly silenced everyone. He realized that if Eren hadn't intervened, his hand would have already been crushed. Only thanks to a small thing did Hansu retain his authority. Meanwhile, on the way to the office, Sven thanked Eren for stopping him. If the main character had done what he had in mind, he would never be able to look the manager in the eye again. But Eren noticed that he was just doing his job. After training with Code Blue, the guy understood where he belonged. He is the only one of Sven's team who is not a metahuman, and so the guy is trying his best to master the work of a guide, to do it well and not be a burden. For the same reason, he wandered around the neighborhood gathering information. So he inadvertently entered Hansu territory and got into trouble. But from that moment on, Eren had learned the order of Nod ranks well. Every metahuman in this organization looks down on ordinary people. Sven, like no one else, knew this because he himself had recently been an ordinary person. And at that moment, the hero remembered Jackie's warning. No one from Nod can be trusted. When Sven returned to the office, neither Bus nor Jamie were there. Minnie was alarmed by Eren's battered appearance, and the main character's attention was attracted by the hunter Han from Code Blue. The man reported the trouble and asked for help. It turns out that Jackie was attacked. Despite the fact that the leader of the Code Blue team is a 7th-ranked person, he was attacked. Recently, the covert team of the 17th Zone received the task of Hunt for Assassins. Sven remembered that a few days ago the branch manager had offered him this task, but when the guy studied the case description, he realized that there was too little information. The commander of the 14th Zone's assault squad, Maiden, fought against his subordinates who had started a rebellion, and died. However, the reasons for the rebellion and the organizers are not specified. In addition, on this mission, you will have to face 3 metahumans, whose abilities are also unknown. Realizing the risk, Sven refused to perform, but Bus understood this decision. Chasing experience at the risk of one's life is not wise. Moreover, the manager himself found this task strange. There were too many dark spots in it. However, 4 days ago, the Code Blue team took over this task and immediately went to work. Jackie was acquainted with Commander Maiden, who was killed, and I considered him a kind and experienced person. The two were at the Nodu training center together, where they met. And then Maiden became part of the covert attack squad of the 14th Zone. If the Code Blue team fails this mission, the headquarters will learn about the secret forces, and then the regional authorities will be accused of treason. Arriving at the location of the killers indicated in the case, the hunters occupied the tallest building for observation. For 4 days, the killers did not reveal their existence. However, the team still managed to wait for one of them to appear. The villain was caught quickly. Jackie tied the killer to a chair and decided to interrogate him. Khan was waiting at the entrance. The killer turned out to be not at all simple. He did not answer any of the questions. Instead, I learned that Code Blue belongs to Zone 17. While Jackie was asking questions, the villain activated his psychopathic abilities. Thus, he took control of the team leader. Sina noticed that something had happened, but she didn't understand what exactly. Khan also sensed danger and tried to warn the girl. However, it was too late. Jackie turned to Sena and stabbed her in the stomach. At that moment, The leader's eyes looked strange and emitted a purple light. They had no life. With a powerful blow, Khan threw Jackie away from the healer. Sina instantly activated her abilities to heal the wound. But within a minute, the team leader returned, attacking Khan. The man barely blocked Jackie's punch. Khan tried to reach out to his comrade verbally, but his mind wouldn't return. The real battle began. Khan was not afraid of this, as he was no less skilled than the leader in combat techniques. However, from the first minutes I realized that Jackie's movements were perfect. Khan failed to strike a single blow at his hypnotized comrade, and when he tried to kick, the leader grabbed Khan. And then he threw him out of the room, breaking through the wall. Jackie was about to finish off his friend, but at that moment, Sina stopped him. She begged the leader to come to his senses, but instead he swung his sword to get rid of the girl. At the last moment, the villain hypnotist stopped Jackie, and only because healing skills are extremely rare. They decided to take Sina with them. During the battle, the villain managed to free himself from the ropes, and he wanted to finish off Khan, but the hunter had already fled by that point. After listening to the story, Aaron expressed his disappointment that Khan had done so, but Sven explained that it was the right decision. The person encountered by the Code Blue team has psychopathic abilities. These are called puppeteers. They are able to penetrate the mind of a target and control it. As a former guide, Sven could not put the entire team in danger to save a comrade. But it was impossible to leave Jackie and Sina in trouble. The branch manager confided in Sven, and the main character decided to go in search of his comrades. Minnie and Aaron's task is to prepare the necessary equipment and plan the route. Area 17 has already practically lost its second team of strong hunters, and this is an unprecedented crisis for the region. The next morning, the Devourer team and Khan from Code Blue set out to search for their comrades. In a wooden box, Aaron carried a rank 20 demonic monster with him, and Sven remembered his training with Jackie. For a long time, he was unable to achieve success in performing the Moonlight Sword technique. All the energy was dissipated without even reaching the goal. But then, Jackie talked about verbal commands, and again he demonstrated the technique. It turns out that to fight a high-ranking demonic beast, it is necessary to sense the movement of the core. It should be treated as an extension of the body. However, in an emergency situation, this is practically impossible to do. And that's where a verbal command comes to the rescue. Thanks to it, the attack power increases significantly. Sven didn't really believe it would work, but he decided to give it a try. After shouting out the name of the technique, the protagonist executed the attack, and this time he succeeded. The surprise was incredibly strong. It really works. Sven felt deep gratitude towards Jackie. In a week, the leader managed to teach the main character a lot. And now the guy wanted Jackie back more than anything because Sven needed him for development. The team arrived at the scene. Khan led his companions to where he had last seen Jackie and Sina. However, the room was empty. As expected, the puppeteer had changed his location. Apart from a tiny drop of blood, there were no traces. It was time to use the demonic beast that Aaron had brought. The boy let the striped mouse sniff the remnants of blood, and she took the trail. It turns out that these animals are often used for tracking, so Sven and Han set off after the striped mouse. Minnie and Aaron followed behind. Finally, the demonic beast ran into one of the rooms. Sven and Han noticed that it was very quiet there, but when the hunters got inside, they saw what was going on. Everyone who was in that room is dead. The bodies of the dead looked horrible, and so Khan thought they had been attacked by demonic beasts. However, Sven knew for sure that this was the work of people, and high-ranking hunters worked here. They acted quickly and without hesitation. After examining the bodies, Khan realized that these were the people described in the task. However, there is no puppeteer among them. Khan also talked about the branch manager's request to find a blonde named Lexi, and fortunately, among the dead, there was no one like her. Sven still didn't understand what was happening here. After waiting for Aaron and Minnie, the team decided to check all the suspicious places in the vicinity, and one of them turned out to be the subway. Usually, such places are filled with demonic beasts, but there are human footprints near the entrance. Khan was ready to go inside to save his comrades, but Aaron stopped him. Without any information about the number of enemies, this action would be extremely unwise. Sven agreed with the boy's opinion, and he suggested luring out the puppeteer. And this will be possible thanks to the invention of Minnie. The girl happily took out a nuclear bazooka. Even if the projectile does not reach the required depth, the explosions and dust will lure the enemy out. Only Minnie had no doubt that she would be able to get rid of the enemies. She made the projectile explode into many small projectiles only after her command. The girl fired the shot, and a few seconds after that she said that explosions are art. Sven assumed this was a verbal command from Minnie. After the explosion, the protagonist and Khan ran to the subway entrance. As soon as the smoke began to clear, the hunter spotted the puppeteer. The scoundrel instantly used his skill and aimed at Sven. But Khan warned the main character in time not to look the enemy in the eye. Sven struck him in the face with his sword. Thus, the puppeteer's skill was neutralized. Then the main character also damaged a nerve in his leg so that the enemy would not be able to escape. The injured man was left to the children. Sven allowed the puppeteer to be dealt with if he did anything strange, and he and Khan went to look for their comrades in the subway. However, there below, an unpleasant surprise awaited them. The hostages were in the hands of an unknown team of metahumans. There were 4 of them, 2 women and 2 men. In addition, the red-haired girl recognized the guide Sven from Zone 17. It was Yusin, King Hansu's wife. However, because of the costume and glasses, the main character did not recognize her. Analyzing the situation, Sven realized that starting a fight was risky, and so there was only one way out. The guy hid his sword and, introducing himself, offered a compromise. He wanted his comrades back and was ready to leave all his achievements to an unknown team, but they considered everything theirs anyway. When the hero tried to find out which zone the team belonged to, he only received an aggressive reaction. It is obvious that these hunters know much more. The situation reached a dead end. Sven tried to figure out how to get out of the situation without a fight. But at that moment, Jackie appeared from the depths of the subway. He was in serious condition. Leaning on his sword, the man demanded that Sena be released. But this only angered the team of strangers. Seonghwa took it upon herself to tame the restless Jackie. She put her sword to the neck of the leader of the Code Blue team, and then Khan couldn't stand it anymore and started acting. He rushed to attack one of the hunters named Kevin. The situation was escalating and it was the worst possible scenario. Sven realized that there was no way back, so he gave the children the command to act. Aaron and Minnie started shooting. Red-haired Yusin and the leader of the unknown team, Burke, were forced to deploy nuclear shields to protect themselves. While the smoke cleared, Sven headed towards the group leader. However, the goal was not achieved. Yusin threw a rope noose around the hero's leg and threw him hard against the wall. Standing up, Sven tried to use the moonlight sword technique. But this also failed. Yusin snatched the sword from the hero's hands, thanks to the same rope. At this moment, the children reacted instantly. They used their weapons again. Yusin and the leader of the unknown team, Burke, hid behind nuclear shields. Sven took the chance and approached the man again. But at the moment of impact, it bounced back, and then he threw the unconscious Sena into the hero's arms. Stunned, Sven barely caught the girl, and immediately after that, he received a punch from Burke. Now the main character finds himself under the sights of the leader of an unknown team. But then the children intervened again. Minnie used her explosions or art technique. Thanks to the warning, Sven managed to activate the nuclear shield and take cover with Sena. The explosion was of extraordinary force. The hunters of the unknown team had a hard time this time. They almost died. But now that the glasses had flown off Yusin's face, Sven realized where he had seen her. While searching for a metahuman for her covert team, this red-haired girl caused quite a stir. The children continued to shoot into the depths of the subway, and although it made no sense in the fight against such strong hunters, they raised a lot of dust. And so the main character took this chance and started running away. He hoped that everything would work out, but running with Sena on his back was not so easy. And in a moment, Burke caught up with Sven. With a strong kick, he stopped the fugitive and sent him back into the subway. And then it got to the children. Seonghwa was still guarding Jackie. Han was holding back Kevin's swords, and Sven was now lying near them. Noticing the sword of the leader of the Code Blue team, the main character had an idea. He grabbed his weapon and prepared to perform the moonlight sword technique. Then Yusin said that Sven should give up, and I remembered his words about knowing your place to survive in the desert. The protagonist calmed down and dropped his weapon. Khan also surrendered. At that moment, the leader of the unknown team had already returned with unconscious children in his arms. The main character's situation was truly deplorable. If Burke had wanted to, he would have killed everyone by himself a long time ago. But instead, he decided to introduce himself. It turns out that an unknown command is operating from Nod headquarters. Sven and Han were stunned. It turns out that all these people are spies. Their task is to study the departments of Nod. Each branch is required to register and report information about their metahumans to the main headquarters. Violations of the rules were recorded in zones 14 and 17, namely the formation of secret forces. Therefore, for this reason, the ghost team was sent here. After explaining, Burke ordered Yusin to put Sven to sleep. The main character only asked to let the children go. But this was impossible until the headquarters made a decision about them. Falling asleep from the effects of Yusin's skill, the protagonist remembered Jackie's words. He warned that Nod should not be trusted. This organization selects young metahumans from the desert and trains them. But after this process is complete, they will be forced to fight demonic beasts. Given Nod's current strength, the organization is capable of destroying all the monsters in the desert. However, they do not do this because they believe that dangerous conditions contribute to awakening. But at this rate, there will soon be no people with abilities left in the desert, and all the ordinary people will simply die. Sven was still very young when a global catastrophe took his family. But one day, branch manager Kim Bus found him among the desert ruins. He then promised that he would make the little one the best guide, and maybe even together they will reach heights that Nod never dreamed of. But now everything has taken a completely unexpected turn. Sven was awakened by the acting director of Nod's main headquarters, Risky Lee. The main character was still tied up. A strap with an explosive core was placed around the boy's neck. Despite Lee's kindness, Sven understood that he and the team were facing death. Nod completed the clearing of the 14th and 17th zones, and it turned out that the one who formed the secret forces received punishment for the crime. Sven is just a piece on the chessboard, and that's why Kim Bus was recognized as the main culprit. The leader of the Code Blue team also committed a serious crime. Despite Jackie turning his back on Nod, he also deliberately joined forces against the main headquarters. But 4 days ago, Nod released this hunter. Jackie lost his awakened power because the puppeteer brainwashed him for too long. And in this state, he will not be able to survive in the desert and will later pay for his crime. Risky Lee was previously an instructor at a training center, so he got down to business and suggested that Sven stay. However, the main character refused and was released. Aran and Khan were also released. Sina and Minnie remained at headquarters. Lee didn't feel threatened by Sven because he has a low level, but he also believed that no one would be able to hide anything from Nod. The main character was not going to sit idly by. He immediately gave a task to Aaron and Khan to find a person named Winter, and he himself went to the office of the 17th zone. But everything there was practically destroyed. Mentally, the boy begged for the branch manager to stay alive. Bursting into Kim Bus's office, the main character saw a terrible picture. The bloodied manager of Zone 17 was lying on the couch. Jamie was with him. Luckily, she was okay. Nod deprived Bus of his limbs. Sven didn't want to accept it. He didn't understand why the branch manager, knowing the future, would allow this to happen. Why did he go against the organization at all? And then Booz decided to explain everything to Sven. He asked Jamie to leave. And then he announced that he couldn't see the future. All he knows is his memory. Humanity was already dying out. But after his death, Bus's life began again from the very beginning. He is a regressor and has the ability to remember past life experiences. Sven remembered all those moments when the branch manager's words had seemed strange to him. Back then, he thought Kim Bus could somehow see into the future, but now he understood the difference. He only knows what happened in his past life, and therefore he failed to predict the later awakening of the main character and the death of Hansu. However, the place from which the demonic creatures appeared has practically not changed. In a previous life, Kim Bus worked in the administrative office of Guangmoon. Thanks to his skill, the man quickly reached a high position. Living in comfort, Bus believed that life in the city would be as it was before the global cataclysm. However, 5 years from now, the extinction of humanity has begun. 3 S-rank creatures appeared at once: Belkist, Malbus, and Saleos, and then Nod couldn't stop them. The organization was supposed to enter the battle immediately after the appearance of these creatures. However, the struggle for power and attempts to create the illusion of security led to a tragic ending. Then Bus died too. Then he was reborn. But the manager still had difficult memories, and with them the names of active hunters. Kim Bus was determined to avert the extinction of humanity, but this time he didn't trust Nod. Instead, the man united with Beatrice. She was still very young then, but very smart. Bus began recruiting people and thus created the 14th, 17th, and 19th zones. Thus, he wanted to collect the 9 keys before Nod did. This is a team of metahumans capable of defeating named S-rank demonic beasts. Kim Bus planned to inform these hunters about the location of the demonic beasts. Then they would have enough time to defeat the demonic beasts one by one. But the manager made a mistake. Nod caught him organizing a covert team. Shortly before this, Bus managed to find one of the keys, Lexi. He entrusted her development to the 14th zone. However, a puppeteer spy emerged within the hidden team. He manipulated the metahumans and killed the commander of the attacking group. Then he took Lexi with him. Thus, all hidden commands were exposed. And now Sven will have to continue his journey alone. Bus gave advice to reduce the number of demonic beasts before the final battle. Only then will there be a chance to win. Sven didn't understand why the branch manager had such high hopes for him. That reason was in the devouring skill of the main character. It has endless potential. And in his past life, it was Sven who caused the most damage to the S-rank demonic beasts. He is the heart of the 9 keys. After all, Kim Bus didn't just wander through the desert in search of the main character. Despite the shock, Sven tried to accept the manager's hopes. And now Bus asks the hero to take the knife from under his desk. The man wants Sven to take away his skills. Thanks to this, the guy will be able to obtain information and fully reveal his potential. Only then will it be possible to win the final battle. But Sven didn't want to do it. He thought it would be better if the branch manager tried again. But Bus no longer had the desire to live everything from scratch. Then the same voice sounded in Sven's head. The guy tried his best to chase him away, and Bus begged the main character to free him from the loop of rebirths. And the guy tried to overcome himself. At the last moment, moments from his childhood appeared in his memory. The manager is a special person in the hero's life. Therefore, Sven could not help but fulfill Kim Bus's last wish. After apologizing, the guy struck. A wave of energy from absorbing the skill covered him. Memories flashed through my head in an unstoppable stream. They were from the life of the branch manager and from the hero's own life. Everything blended into one. Sven lost consciousness again. But when I woke up, I didn't immediately understand who I was. Only when the boy saw Kim Bus's body in front of him did everything fall into place. All those memories that the hero received were too painful. Now Sven understood what a heavy burden the branch manager had had to live with all this time. Kim Bus was an extremely strong man. Now the main character is scared. He will no longer be the same as he was before. Suddenly, Sven heard the manager's voice. The man apologized for putting everything on the hero's shoulders. However, in reality, it was not Bus's voice, but his screaming thoughts in the last minutes of his life. Bowing to the manager, Sven left the Area 17 office. Now he was looking everywhere for Jamie, but I found her in the yard. The secretary was held hostage by Hansu's gang. The villain invited the hero to join his team. Since Nod rejected Kim Bus for committing a crime, Hansu set out to take over Area 17, and he thought he had the trump card. The villain caught Jackie and nailed him to the cross. He hoped that Nod would be interested in the offender, but Sven just laughed in response. Neither Jackie nor the branch manager are of any value to Nod anymore. The organization has already punished both. But while all the hunters were defending Zone 17, Hansu's gang was doing simply terrible things. The scoundrel was enraged by Sven's audacity and wanted to teach him a lesson. But at that moment, the hero had a memory and learned about another feature of his skill. To take someone's power, he doesn't have to kill them. Sven immediately activated his ability and grabbed Hansu's hands. The main character began to suck out the enemy's skills. In a few seconds, it was all over and Hansu pushed Sven away. He didn't understand what had happened, but he wanted revenge for the unpleasant feeling. And the main character was a bit disappointed that he only received a rank 15 boost. Enraged, Hansu instantly took out his sword, but was unable to hold it. There was even more misunderstanding of the situation. The scoundrel did not want to believe that he had lost his strength and tried to raise his weapon. But his muscles could barely withstand the strain. Then Sven decided to end it. He hit Hansa and he lost consciousness. The remaining hunters rushed to the attack. At this moment, the main character decided to test another of his skills, relying on memories. It took the hero just a few seconds to unite his internal energy into a single whole. Sven concentrated and a black aura gathered around him. No one present had seen anything like this before. Then the hero activated the tentacle skill. The villains began to flee in different directions, but they were quickly taken out and pierced by black processes. In a moment, everyone was finished, and Sven felt very exhausted. This skill absorbs too much energy. At this moment, Hansu woke up. Even with a broken jaw, he threatened the hero with reprisals. But this was not destined to happen. Sven finished off the scoundrel. Only in this way can the guy completely master the skill. That's why the branch manager asked Sven for death. The next morning, Jamie and the main character buried Kim Busa and Jackie. After that, the secretary will return to working with evacuees at the exchange center. And now a big mission awaits Sven. First of all, the hero went to Guangmoon. He is going to meet with Senator Beatrice. It turned out not to be that simple. Sven was forced to show Marie a map from the city's research department. The girl agreed to guide the hero, but on the way, she said that she felt incredible strength from the guy. And besides, now it seems as if several types of energy are mixed in it. It turns out that Marie's rank has increased, and she is now able to sense metahumans even from a distance. However, the girl believed that a person could not have multiple types of energy, and Sven didn't object. To get the final answer, Marie was going to take the hero by the hand. But the guy warned that he would scream if she did it. Soon, the heroes arrived at the senator's tower. Beatrice greeted the guest graciously. She knew Sven would come and was waiting for him. Marie was surprised when the main character and the senator greeted each other as if they were acquaintances. For a while, the girl left them. Beatrice immediately guessed that Sven had already mastered the skills of a branch manager. But it was bitter for her to realize that he was already dead. These two were united by a common goal. Sven said he was going to continue Bus's plan. Beatrice was pleasantly surprised. This was what she had hoped for the most. The role of a senator in terms of a manager is simple. She will maintain the barrier as long as necessary. But when the time comes, Beatrice will join the keys without hesitation. This answer suited the main character. That's why he came here. As Sven was about to leave the tower, the senator asked what he was going to do next. And he said that he would bring Winter, that is, one of the keys, to Nod's main headquarters. Beatrice was indignant because this did not fit Kim Bus's plan at all. But the main character is just going to use the organization's infrastructure. He will form a team that will be able to defeat the demonic beasts. Sven is ready to do anything to drain all of Nod's resources. Before his death, Bus said that opposing the organization was not the best option. Therefore, the main character made this decision. As they walked, the guy advised the senator not to forget about sleep if she wanted to live to see X Day. In the evening, Sven and Han sat by the fire and waited for Aaron. The former Code Blue hunter didn't know what to do next. His teacher Jackie and the branch manager died. Sven analyzed recent events. Considering his memories from the past and the current situation, Nod always acted justly. Therefore, it is also not worth completely distrusting this organization. But what must the Devourer team do to gain an advantage in the final battle? The protagonist told Han that he had an assignment from the branch manager, namely, to create an independent squad that can eradicate demonic beasts. Then Khan remembered how Jackie had praised Sven and said that he would be able to live up to Bus's hopes. So he asked to join the main character's team. Although Khan was not among the 9 keys, his support would not be superfluous, and so Sven agreed. At that moment, Aaron arrived, and he brought good news. The boy managed to find Winter's location, as Sven had requested. The very next morning, Aaron led the team to the appropriate shelter. But there was a big wall in front of him. It can protect against low-rank monsters, but it is unable to contain stronger ones. This place still exists in the desert, only because it is protected by one of the 9 keys of Winter. Sven moved closer to the fortification. He wanted to check the level of protection of the shelter, and an arrow immediately landed nearby. It was a warning. The next arrow had to be shot down with a sword. Only after this did the main character decide to fight back, and Aaron was only too happy to do it. Sven didn't even notice at what point this boy became so similar to Minnie. Aaron prepared the onion. But then a multitude of arrows rained down on the hunters. Khan reacted immediately, and at the last moment shot down the arrows with his swords. Sven hurried Aaron. The boy loaded his bow and aimed at one of the guards on the fortification. As the main character requested, Aaron only fired warning shots. Then the boy took out an arrow with an explosive. He was eager to use it, and Sven allowed it on the condition that no one would get hurt. The core exploded, and the guards of the Exangol shelter began to flee. The job is done. The team has proven its strength. And so now the hunters have made their way unhindered behind the fortifications. There they were met by Madame John In Suk. She realized that the guests were not simple, so she apologized for being rude. Next, the main character's team was led inside. But along the way, Sven noticed one peculiarity. The local people looked very tired. Hunger and fear are common traits of desert dwellers, but here something is clearly different. Madame Chan quickly found a room for the hunters and brought them some food and a local drink. Then Sven got down to business. He introduced the team as Hunters of Nod, and their goal is to find Kim Gavl. Madame Zhang turned pale. She had no idea that Nod knew about the girl. Everyone knows that it is the duty of every hunter to register with the organization. But Kim Gavl is the only metahuman in the Exangol shelter, and if Nod takes the girl, everyone in it will soon die from demonic beasts. Sven understood Madame Shan's excitement and handed her a bag of kernels as payment for the information. The main character promised that he would not take Gavl against her will, and only then did Madame Shan agree to talk to the girl. The woman took the money, so Sven was convinced that she would not be a hindrance. Having done part of the work, the hunters decided to rest and try a treat. The drink that Madame Shan brought was like wine. However, alcohol is a luxury even for the city. And that's why Sven realized that something was wrong here. He instantly knocked the glasses out of his friend's hands. They were treated to dog blood. More precisely, the demonic beasts of the Gargas. They look like dogs. The drink is made by filtering and fermenting blood. It causes hallucinations similar to alcohol intoxication. If blood is consumed over a period of time, the poison will accumulate in the body and lead to death. Now Sven understood why the people in the shelter looked so bad. However, the hero was curious about who introduced the local people to this drink. In the evening, Sven was left alone in the room. But suddenly, someone knocked on the door. When the hero opened it, an angry Kim Gavl stood before him. She asked the main character to go outside. The girl was going to talk to him like a man. In the past, Gavl was Sven's friend. She fearlessly hunted demonic beasts and displayed incredible strength in battle. Even in the moments when the girl disappeared for a while, the worries were in vain. After all, she never returned empty-handed. The residents of the shelter have already gathered in the courtyard in anticipation of the battle. Gavl was exactly as it is now in the main character's memories. Only at the current level it looked wilder. Sven suggested we talk first, but Gavl did not consider this option. She only wished that the uninvited guests would disappear from the shelter if Sven was defeated. And the girl didn't doubt it for a moment. Gavl rushed into the attack, and the main character took advantage of the release of energy and, snapping his fingers, stopped it. Jackie and Sina taught him this trick, and it turned out to be very useful. Those present were amazed. Even Aaron did not expect such an easy and quick victory, and the next day he thought the team would take Gavl and leave the shelter. However, Sven was in no hurry. He was also going to go hunting with local hunters. Aaron didn't understand why they couldn't just take what they came for. And then Khan explained that if they did that, everyone in the shelter would die from the demonic beasts. Aaron immediately fell silent and left the room. He remembered what happened to Mockdong, and Sven guessed it. The main character knew very well that this place would end in a month anyway, but he planned to take Gavl after that happened. The next morning, a gathering of hunters was held to discuss the hunt. The local guide reported that their opponents were insect-like demonic beasts. Their weakness is fire, and therefore he proposed to create a strong defense and burn enemies who encroach on their territory. Sven pointed out that this was not correct, and he added that the killer bees they are dealing with are quite resistant to fire. Even when the body is burning, the insect can still fly a considerable distance. In addition, one such bee has a 17th rank, and ordinary people are forbidden to fight against such beasts. Just one insect bite would be enough to kill a person without abilities, and so Sven suggested that only he and Gavl go hunting. The rest of the group began to resent it. They had previously managed without Nod's help, but that was only because all the work fell to Gavl. The girl knew this well, so she didn't object. And then she ordered everyone to disperse and agreed to the hero's proposal. Only Gavl noticed that Sven would receive a salary for hunting, not her favor. The main character did not expect that the girl would immediately agree to go with him to Nod. But instead of payment, he wants information. Sven also noticed that real alcohol can be made from bee venom. But the girl reacted quite strangely to this. Soon the hunters arrived at the hive. They crept closer to him imperceptibly and quickly. There were 2 killer bees near the entrance, and that means the rest are asleep. Sven decided to test his knowledge in practice. He used the moonlight sword technique and cut down the hive. The hero managed to destroy several dozen insects. But if he had honestly shouted the name of the technique, he could have destroyed the entire hive. The rest of the bees woke up and started to climb outside. The hunters prepared for battle. Gavl activated her ability. Sven has always admired it. Its core is golden in color, and the energy takes the form of a lioness. This ability, like Beatrice's barrier and Sven's devouring ability, defies any classification, a powerful reinforcement of the wild beast. Gavl entered the battle. In one move, the girl destroyed the first insect. She showed the same result with the next few insects. Her rank is definitely above the 10 mark. Taking his eyes off his future comrade, Sven also joined the fight. Thanks to the memories he received and Jackie's explanations, the main character easily destroyed the monsters. He decided to test the tentacle skill again. The black energy instantly took the form of shoots, and then it pierced a dozen killer bees. Sven felt very exhausted again. This skill takes away about 30% of his energy. It is very useful, but the hero still doesn't have enough strength to use it. And so Sven is forced to swing his sword and destroy the insects alone. But suddenly he noticed that Gavl was in trouble. A girl was stung in the leg by a killer bee. Gavl wanted to pull out the stinger, but Sven warned her that if she did, she would also pull out her skin. The poison spread through the body, and the leg began to become paralyzed. The protagonist quickly explained that it was necessary to cut the wound and remove the stinger. Then use internal energy to push out the poison. At the same time, it is necessary to maintain the skill in action at all times. Gavl got to work. Meanwhile, Sven actively defended her. He realized that training is very important even if you have talent. The guy has enough knowledge, unlike Gavl, and therefore she still has a long path ahead of her to develop and discover her own strengths. Sven understood how important it was now to prevent the insect from reaching the girl, and so I concentrated on releasing internal energy. The only thing that worried the hero was the presence of the queen bee. Will he have enough strength to fight the main monster? Sven decided to think about it later, and now he gathered all his energy and released it. A powerful glow spread like a shockwave and incinerated all the insects around. This process also took a lot of energy from the hero, and Gavl froze in place with admiration. She admitted that the main character was cool. Sven checked the girl's condition. She did a great job with the recovery, but if he doesn't continue, he'll lose his leg. Now it's time to go to battle with the queen. This intention moved Gavl. If the hero manages to win, the Exangel shelter will be safe. Sven went to the hive to search. He was worried that there might be more soldiers with the queen, and he had little energy. But to test this, the main character generated an energy core and launched it in front of him. The soldier bees should respond to the light. However, none appeared. So all the queen's defenders have already been destroyed. Sven confidently ran forward. Within a few minutes, he found what he was looking for. The queen bee immediately activated the energy shield. In response, the protagonist used the explosive sword technique. The powerful flame destroyed the demonic creature. The bee eggs scattered everywhere. But at that moment, Sven used energy release. And then the killer bees were finally finished. It's time to get rewarded. The main character cut the monster open and took its cores. But deeper inside was the real prize, the queen's crystal. Sven immediately used the trophy. In this way, he was able to restore lost energy. It's time to go back. On the way to the shelter, Gavl worried about how she would appear to her people. Due to her injuries, she is forced to move around with the help of Sven. But the girl was even more worried about the prey she would bring. So she asked to divide the kernels in half. Even though I understood that it was completely shameless, the protagonist reminded the girl that he was ready to give everything if she would give him information in return. Sven wanted to know the real reason why Gavl didn't want to leave the shelter. And then the girl brought the hero to her home. It was dark there, but as it turned out, that's not the worst thing. The room smelled of rotting flesh. This smell came from the man who was lying tied to the bed. That's Gavl's younger brother. He looked just awful, and all because he is addicted to the blood of gargoyles. The girl can't leave this place just because she brought this drink to the shelter herself. And now she must atone for this sin until death. Sven spent the whole evening searching for the right solution. From his memories, he knew that after the destruction of Exangol, Gavl was found barely alive. She had numerous injuries, but the girl was saved by Nod. After that, she joined the organization. 3 of the keys, Sina, Lexi, and Minnie, are already at the training center. The best thing for the development of Gavl would be if she also went there. The hero's thoughts were interrupted by the appearance of Aaron and Khan. These two explored all the surrounding areas and studied the levels of the demonic beasts there. It's time for Sven to announce his next plan of action. The hero reported that in 4 days, a horde of orcs would attack this place. There will be several dozen of them, led by a king. The main monster is level 4. Therefore, no one will be able to cope with it at this stage. Therefore, Sven suggested avoiding the fight and saving Gavl. Khan insisted on trying to save the shelter's residents as well. But this is impossible. 30% of them are poisoned by the blood of gargoyles, and the rest are not even able to withstand killer bees. If you try to engage in battle, everyone will die. Then Aaron suggested evacuating the local residents to a certain zone. However, it is unlikely that anyone will want to accept them. Sven reminded his comrades that their main mission was to assemble a team to destroy the demonic beasts. It was painful for him to realize his helplessness in this situation, but there was no other way out. Besides, under any circumstances, Gavl will not agree to abandon his people. Sven was more than sure of this, because now he knew the truth about her. Then it was time to voice the most painful decision. Aaron will not participate in the mission. Sven decided that the guy would be better off going to Zone 17 and becoming a guide there. And Gavl, Sven, and Han will go to Nod. The protagonist made this decision because he could not allow Aaron to die on the battlefield. So it would be better if he were safe. The boy left at night, and in the morning, Sven heard a strange noise. The hero immediately went to the observation tower. His suspicions were confirmed. The orc horde was already close. News of the attack quickly spread throughout the shelter. Gavl said goodbye to her brother, knowing that this battle would be their last. Exangel was engulfed in chaos. Gavl hoped that the guests from Nod would help in the battle, but they were nowhere to be found. And this is understandable, because even with them, the situation would not have changed. Havel took on the task of defending the eastern side alone. Her hatred for demonic beasts was just burning. Meanwhile, Sven and Han patiently observed the situation from a safe distance. At the same time, they were both worried about Aaron. They hoped that the boy had managed to reach the 17th zone. Sven gave Han the flying pheromone of insectoid demonic beasts. Thanks to it, the hunter will be able to hide his presence from the orcs. The total destruction of people was taking place throughout the shelter. Madame Shan, who was defending the south wall, was wounded. Sven and Han split up. But periodically, the main character reminded his comrade over the radio that it was necessary to stick to the plan. Their goal is to save Havel. At this time, the girl was already actively destroying demonic monsters. Without any problems, Gavl coped with those who managed to get to the fortifications, and then immediately went beyond its borders. The girl was surrounded on all sides. However, the blow was struck by the king. Gavl barely stopped the giant axe, but from a strong blow, she sank to the ground up to her chest. Khan immediately informed Sven about this. Most of all, the main character did not want Gavl to meet the king. But in such a scenario, there is only one option left, to come to the rescue. Meanwhile, Gavl emerged from the ground and prepared to attack the powerful enemy. However, instead, she received a powerful blow. The girl broke through the fortifications with her body. Sven raced to help at full speed, and the Orc King has already approached to finish off Gavl. At this point, the girl could no longer continue the fight or defend herself. But when the monster swung to strike, Khan rushed to help. He managed to block the shot. According to the plan, the Khan was to prevent Gavl from meeting the king. After the girl was exhausted by the fight, the man had to take her to a safe place. But there was also a plan B. If Gavl meets the king, Khan's task is to distract him for 1 minute. This time is enough for the main character to arrive to help. But when Khan felt the strength of the powerful opponent, he was not sure he could hold out. Now he understood what Sven had meant when he said that it would not be possible to save everyone. In a battle against the Orc King, you may not survive. And now this monster was about to strike another blow at Khan. The man knew that if he didn't dodge, he would definitely die. But fortunately, Sven repelled the king's attack with his energy. He arrived just in time. The main character actively attracted attention. Meanwhile, Khan continued to execute the plan. And within seconds, he was running away with Gavl on his back. The king did not want to let go of his prey. The main character tried to attract his attention again. Despite this, the orc leader shouted something in an incomprehensible language. Then the orc magician began to act. This creature has a 5th rank and the ability to telekinesis. But instead, the magician ordered the orc hunters to catch up with the fugitives. Sven was stunned. He was not aware of such orcs, and the boy had no choice but to rely on Khan. After all, now he faces a battle with the Orc King. At this point, Khan had managed to cover a considerable distance. The man decided to stop for a moment and catch his breath. But strange sounds were heard behind me. Khan noticed with horror that he was being caught up by 2 orcs riding giant wolves, and they were approaching very quickly. One of the orcs was about to throw a spear into sacrifice. But at that moment, he was hit by an explosive arrow. The wolf and the orc fell to the ground. Neither Khan nor his pursuers understood what had happened, until the hunter heard a familiar voice from the roof of the building. Aaron was there. The boy did not go to Zone 17, but decided to stay and help his comrades. At this time, on the outskirts of the Exangle refugee, the battle between Sven and the Orc King continued. Fortunately, the main character could only focus on the strongest opponent. And the thing is, no one can interfere in the king's battle. Sven felt a strong energetic pressure, but he decided to act. The hero used the moonlight sword technique. As expected, the orc repelled the attack with an axe. But at that very moment, Sven struck the giant monster in the leg, and he thought he had won this attack. But in a moment, the Orc King grabbed the hero by the hand, and then he pushed it into the ground. Sven barely managed to escape, and his attention was drawn to the Orc Mage. He was saying something. In a second, the hero noticed that the enemy had used telekinesis. He managed to lift part of the building. Sven thought the attack was aimed at him, so he activated his energy shield. However, the building flew past the hero towards the Khan of Gavl. Meanwhile, Aaron continued to shoot at the orc hunters. But suddenly, the monsters stopped and decided to split up. One of them continued chasing Khan. But Aaron immediately shot him, and the other one was just watching the guy at that time. When Aaron noticed him looking, he aimed his next arrow at him. Suddenly, that orc shouted something, and after that, Aaron noticed that part of the building was flying at him. The guy couldn't avoid the blow, but he survived. Only his leg was now broken, but the worst was yet to come. The same orc hunter was already approaching the boy. The only thing Aaron has left is his mini pistol, and the battle between Sven and the Orc King was still going on. The main character decided to use a technique that he had never performed before in this life. This element was difficult to do even for Jackie, but Sven took a risk. He poured his energy into the sword and it released in a golden glow. She left only a scratch on the king's body. But because the hero's goal was different, he tried to hit the magician who was standing behind the king, and Sven succeeded. The annoying servant cut in half fell to the ground. The third technique, Infinite Sword, increases sensitivity in exchange for strength. And that was enough to destroy the magician. But now the Orc King was really angry. From the very beginning, Sven only tried to buy time and distract the orcs so that Han could escape. And now it's time for the hero himself to escape. To do this, Sven used the explosive sword technique. It will not harm the Orc King, but it will cover the hero at the moment of escape. But it seems the monster wanted to kill Sven too badly. After all, even through the fire, he grabbed it and squeezed so hard that the hero's spine could barely stand it. Thanks to the energy shield, the boy was still holding on. Then he stuck his sword into his opponent's mouth, but he grabbed the weapon with his teeth and shattered the blade. This made the main character very angry. So he stuck the rest of the sword into the king's mouth again and concentrated his energy. Her release led to an explosion. While the smoke cleared, Sven tried again to escape. He immediately activated the protective shield. And for good reason, because the orc archers began to shower him with arrows. The hero's energy was at its limit. Besides, now he didn't have the sword artifact. And so the enemies managed to break through the protective barrier. And now he won't recover properly. One of the arrows hit him in the shoulder. Sven focused all his energy on strengthening his lower body. And he was not mistaken. Thus the hero managed to escape. He stuck to the route discussed in the plan. But soon he noticed that the wolf tracks of the orc hunters were splitting apart. Next to them were traces of nuclear weapons, which seemed strange to Sven. The protagonist decided to hurry and came across a dead orc hunter. He was near the meeting place with Khan. There was no other orc, and so Sven hurried to come to his friend's aid. He was incredibly happy when he saw that everything was fine with Khan. Gavl lay unconscious. Khan had already used all the healing items, but the girl still hadn't woken up. The man himself was also wounded in the stomach, but had already applied the treatment package. Sven wondered how Han managed to escape the fall of the building moved by the mage. And the man was surprised because nothing fell on him. And then he told me that Aaron helped him. It was thanks to the boy that Han managed to escape from the orc hunters. Sven realized with horror that the attack was aimed at Aaron. And now it became clear where the second orc hunter had gone. The hero immediately rushed to search for the boy, hoping that he was still alive. Orc mages have the ability to link vision with other orcs, and so aiming at Aaron was not a problem for them. Sven still had 13% of his energy left, and that should be enough to fight one orc. But when the main character arrived at the scene, he was met by a giant wolf. Sven prepared for battle, and then I heard Aaron's voice. The boy ordered the wolf not to touch the main character. To his great surprise, the beast obeyed the little one. And then Aaron announced that he had woken up. The moment the orc hunter found the boy, he tried to defend himself with a gun. However, Aaron's arm was also damaged, and he failed to hit the target. The monster knocked the weapon out of the boy's hands, and then he stabbed him in the shoulder. Orcs love human flesh, and Aaron knew it well. The guy also understood that he would die, but he was going to take the monster with him. At that moment, Aaron felt a severe pain in his chest, and then he heard someone offering him help. There was no one there except the orc and the wolf. The boy felt as if someone's thoughts were pouring into his head. When he looked at the wolf again, he realized that it was this beast that was addressing him. The orc was about to strike the boy with his spear, and Aaron asked for help. The giant wolf pounced on the orc. The boy instantly grabbed a gun and shot the monster in the head. Thus, Aaron managed to survive. But now a new test awaited him. Sven was working the boy's bones, and in parallel with this, he used a healing mixture. The main character realized that the boy's skills belong to one of 6 types, taming evil. But it is so rare that only a few such awakened ones are known. And this means that Aaron will be useful even in the final battle against demonic creatures. So Sven welcomed the boy and invited him to join Nod. The main character warned that it wouldn't be easy there, but Aaron believed that it simply couldn't get any worse than the desert. And so I happily accepted the offer. The moment Aaron shook Sven's hand, he felt nothing. The voice of his devouring skill was silent, and the main character only felt this way once. It was with a person he had not yet met in this life. But no matter how hard the hero tried, he could not find anything in common between the two. Gavl woke up only a few days later, but by this point, she and Sven's crew were already on the Nod transport ship. The girl was in despair over what had happened. But when she calmed down, the main character told everything as it happened. Gavl wanted to know what Sven needed from her, and he announced that he was forming the strongest team to destroy the demonic beasts, and he wants Gavl to join him, so that she could use her anger as fuel for the rest of her life and their joint struggle. Without holding back tears, Gavl promised to fight to the last. Before long, the ship arrived at the island where Nod's main headquarters is located. But before heading to the tiger's den, Sven asked everyone to be vigilant. Only in this way will they be able to survive. 3 months have passed. Sven became the captain of Nod's 403rd unit. His deputy is Sina. As the main character planned, all his friends from the desert ended up under his command. They have already completed the basic training program. After that, everyone will receive a weapon appropriate to their skills and continue training. But before that, newcomers must pass a test. Sven gathered all his subjects for a briefing. Instead of regular training, hunters will have to fight real demonic monsters. And if someone doesn't manage, they will die. The goal of the mission is to destroy the mermaids who are gathering to spawn in the cave. Beasts have a 10th rank. According to Nod, there are about 60 mermaids in the cave. An S-rank demonic beast was also discovered there. This worried Aaron very much. However, Nod had already eliminated the monster. Khan expressed concern about whether they would have enough strength to deal with so many opponents. But the main character noted that mermaids only show their full power in the water. At the moment, there is no water in the cave, and therefore the rank of the monsters will decrease. Sven and Sina were the first to enter the cave. It turned out to be quite spacious. To take up the entire width, the squad members will have to walk 5 in a line. Hunters Sano and Jun used firepower to illuminate. After walking some distance inside, the main character noticed that there was indeed water in the cave. But her level is knee-deep, so it won't significantly affect the mermaid's strength. Sven decided that there was no need to go any further. The main character ordered 2 recruits to go on reconnaissance. The guys were incredibly scared. But they were even more afraid of Sven, and so they obeyed the order. The rest of the squad waited in place. After a while, Sven's bracelet gave a signal, and almost immediately, scouts appeared. They ran as fast as they could and asked for help. The mermaids were catching up. Sven ordered everyone to take up fighting positions. The first group set out to create a protective shield. The archers were ready. The remaining hunters began clearing the path in case of a quick retreat. The mermaids rushed to the attack. Several of them immediately burned upon contact with the barrier. It was unspeakably terrifying for the newcomers to be so close to these creatures. However, they held on bravely. The mermaids did not stop attacking. Working together, they managed to crack the barrier. At this point, the archers prepared to attack. They couldn't use live arrows because the cave might collapse, and so they only worked with ordinary arrows. Soon, a gap appeared where the shield had cracked, and mermaids immediately made their way through it. Gavl rushed into the attack. With one movement of a wild beast, the girl destroyed the demonic monster. She bit the other's throat. It seemed that the mermaids didn't stand a chance against Gavl. This girl knew how to fight since childhood. On the other hand, Khan. He cannot be called a genius, but perseverance and training brought excellent results. Now the man easily chopped the mermaids in all directions. With the help of archers and melee fighters, the first line restored the shield. After destroying several dozen monsters, Gavl felt tired, and she was very indignant when she noticed that Sven was not helping, but chatting with Eren. The girl expressed indignation, and then the main character took up the sword. The time has come for active offensive action. The protective shield has been removed. The hunters who held the barrier did a good job. Sina and Lexi set out to provide assistance to the victims. All the melee fighters got ready. The main character stepped forward. He decided to take the main blow and ordered his comrades to take care of the remaining monsters. Sven's shots were flawless. One by one, the mermaids fell to the ground. Gavl and Khan were already starting to get bored because after the main character, there were no monsters left. Despite the brilliant success, there were still many opponents, and so Sven used the moonlight sword technique. The result was magnificent, but the cave reacted to a powerful release of energy. Stones rained down on the hunters' heads, and this is even when the main character used only a third of his own strength. It was like fighting with your hands and feet tied. Due to the possibility of being trapped under the cave's rubble, Sven could not use the explosive sword technique. But fighting mermaids with just one sword was ineffective. Suddenly, something strange started happening behind enemy lines. The mermaids began to fight among themselves. Khan and Gavl didn't understand what was going on. Only Sven knew it was Eren's work. The boy penetrated the mind of one of the monsters and forced him to fight with his comrades. This is exactly what Sven asked the boy shortly before the attack, and Eren managed, although it is obvious that it was not easy for him to do this. In his thoughts, the boy held out hope that one day he would be able to penetrate even Belkist's mind, and then he will avenge the destruction of Mockdong and the death of everyone who lived there. When chaos and strife engulfed the mermaids, Sven ordered the hunters to act. Now destroying monsters has become much easier, and within a few minutes, the squad under the command of the main character won the victory. Only the mermaid remained, which Eren still controlled. Sven didn't know this and moved closer to finish off the last opponent. The boy was unable to break the connection with the beast in time, and therefore took the attack personally. At this moment, Sven pierced the mermaid's chest, and Eren screamed in pain. He came to, but still believed that he had been shot in the heart. Sena immediately rushed to help. But within a second, I realized that everything was fine with Eren. The angry healer warned that it was better not to joke with her like that. After the battle was over, the hunters began to gather their prey. At that moment, Sven noticed the difference between the people from the desert and those who lived in better conditions. The psyche of the former was hardened to dangerous situations and the fight against demonic beasts. Sven thanked Arana for the good work, but he noticed that the boy was not feeling very well. He realized that it was too early to think about controlling an S-rank beast. Suddenly, tears welled up in Eren's eyes, and the guy didn't understand what was happening to him. Then the main character sent the squad to rest, and he, along with Sina, Khan, and Gavl, went to check out the rest of the cave. And not long after, the heroes came across another unknown passage. He was not mentioned in any of the records of Nod. New recruits are regularly tested in this cave. and they all ended the mission by destroying 60 mermaids. The 304th detachment covered approximately the same distance. Judging by this, a question arises. If mermaids are gathering here to spawn, there must be some signs. But the hunters found nothing. In addition, each animal takes care of its offspring. Therefore, the first invasion of hunters into this territory should have scared away the mermaids. However, they continue to gather here. Sven suggested that something else they didn't know about was making the beast come back here. The main character reported the find to the instructor at Olivia's training center. It turns out that all previous teams were simply silent about the existence of a passage in the cave. Olivia suggested that perhaps some monster was making its way in this way, and I was afraid that the Sandwalkers would not return. To clarify everything, the instructor sent regular army hunters to the cave. But Sven was also forced to stay as a witness. Sina, Khan, and the blonde Lexi remained with the hero. The four of them will have to return to the cave again. The team of regular army hunters did not have to wait long. They arrived by helicopter. Team leader Damen immediately introduced himself. With him was a girl, Sakura, and two men, Guan and Dix. Sven also introduced his team and assured them that they would be able to provide logistical support. But Damen noted that this was not necessary. He generally believed that beginners didn't have to go with them, but that's what instructor Olivia wanted. The main character led the hunters to an unknown passage. As it turned out, it was their first time here. The Domino team's training took place elsewhere. Sakura immediately noticed that the cave they were exploring was artificial, and it is obvious that this path was not paved by a worm. Hunter Dix found a sign above the entrance. It said, "First." Everyone had many questions and a sense of danger. However, Damen had no intention of returning with anything. He threw a pebble into the passage, and it landed safely, about 100 meters away. Damen took command and the hunters set off. Everyone was incredibly tense. It was getting very humid and hot in the cave. Suddenly, Damen stumbled over something with his foot. It was a human skull. The unexpected find alarmed the hunters even more, but no one confessed. Sven was constantly worried. This climate was conducive to exhaustion. So if you have to face a high-ranking monster, everyone will be in trouble. Soon the hunters reached the cave's extension, and we decided to rest there. Damen expressed his surprise at the persistence of the newcomers. But Sven explained that the point was that they had voluntarily joined Nod, and that's why the rest of them don't understand them. At this point, Lexi became wary. Sven also felt a strange energy. Damen ordered his comrades to take up a fighting position. The mermaids were approaching the hunters again, only they were much larger than the previous ones. The protagonist took out his sword, but Damen stopped him. He assured that the regular army hunters would cope with this task. A team of professionals rushed into the attack. A fierce battle began. 3 hunters were actively destroying mermaids. Dick stayed to guard the protagonist's team. From the very first minutes, Sven realized that he had no reason to worry. Obviously, regular army hunters have the 3rd rank, and the group leader in general is the 1st. Suddenly, Sven noticed that a mermaid had crept up on him. But before he could raise his sword, Dix destroyed the monster. In less than 10 minutes, Domino's team destroyed 30 monsters, and this task turned out to be just a warm-up for them. After that, Sven and Hans set about checking to see if any of the animals were left alive. The Domino was very surprised by the hero's composure, but Sven explained it with an experience in the desert. The hunters moved on. Khan then admitted that he didn't feel very comfortable with his 11th level among such professionals. Sven understood his friend's feelings, but that wasn't what he needed to worry about right now. Suddenly, Damen saw something. All the hunters immediately rushed towards him. Before each of them appeared a spacious cave with many fireflies. Sven noted that this place is also a natural formation. However, the rocks were alarming. They are completely different and uncharacteristic for this island. In addition, fireflies are inhabitants of the Pacific Ocean, and therefore should not be here either. It seems as if someone moved this place along with the unknown force hidden within it. While the main character was exploring the environment, the regular army hunters moved further and found something else. Sven and the team rushed to take a look. Deep in the cave stood a giant creature. Her arms alone reached 2 meters. The creature was chained to stones and did not move, and so the hunters assumed that she was not alive. Only Sven stood silent, frozen in horror. He recognized it as Reia. Then he instantly ordered his comrades to hide behind the rocks and be ready. No one understood what was going on. Within a minute, stones began to fall from the creature's head. She woke up. Reia's eyes lit up, and then the mouth on her chest opened. The creature grabbed Guan's leg with its tongue. Sven tried to save the man, but he didn't have time. Reia pulled the victim into her mouth and began to eat the leg. Guan hit the monster with a hammer. Thus, he managed to escape. But now he was without a leg, so he couldn't run away. Damen ordered Senna to cure his comrade. The girl immediately rushed to help. But at that very moment, Sven stopped her and ordered her to turn back. Dom didn't like it because he's the boss here. But the hero was not going to give in. His comrades were in danger. Sven ordered Sena to act from a distance and the girl obeyed. Then he explained to Damen that Regia was an S-rank demon. 5 years ago, he appeared in New Zealand. Then OA, together with Nod, neutralized the creature. However, information about this is not being disseminated because these two organizations are at odds. That is why even regular army hunters know nothing about this creature. Meanwhile, Regia woke up again. But to prevent her attack, Damen decided to attack first. At this point, Deeks began to distract the monster, but she pierced the hunter with a powerful beam of light from her eyes. Sakura froze in horror. The main character's fears were not unfounded. On the way to this place, Sven noticed how the local climate affects hunters. They first encountered an S-rank monster in a fairly exhausted state, and that's why they can't use even half of their own strength now. Meanwhile, Regia's eyes began to glow again, and even brighter. Sven ordered everyone to use a protective shield. But the creature did not attack, but grabbed Deeks' body with its tongue. At this moment, Damen rushed into the attack, but he was immediately struck by Regia's beam. Then the creature continued the treat. Sakura started to run away. However, the enemy beam caught up with her. The same fate awaited Guan. Immediately after the girl, Regia cut his body in half. Only the main character remained in the demon's field of vision, and he strictly ordered his comrades to stay where they were, since the beam would not reach them there. It's a wonder that Regia didn't attack Sven right away. At first, the creature began devouring corpses, and the main character used this moment to escape, but he could not remain unnoticed. Regia's attack hit the main character directly. The protective shield shattered into pieces. Landing after falling, Sven noticed that the demon had prepared to attack again. The guy barely had time to put up a shield at the last moment. This time, the beam reflected and hit a stalactite. A boulder fell next to Sven, and the guy used it as cover. The tension of the situation was growing. Sven understood how worried his comrades were right now. The exit from the danger zone is very far away. The hunters will not even have time to get close to him before Regia destroys them all. Everyone was amazed at how Sven managed to stay calm. But the thing was, the hero had already had to fight against S-ranks many times, although this was in a past life. Then Regia appeared 2 years later. It broke through right under Nod's headquarters and claimed the lives of 39 regular army hunters. At this time, Sven was in the desert. Only when the dust settled did the main character see what was happening. It was not for nothing that Sven noticed that the rocks of this cave were not typical of this area. The monster's current appearance indicates that it has been sealed. A sign of this is also the magic circle behind Regia. People with magical abilities are very rare, and only Nod and OA have those that can seal an S-level monster. The powers of these two metahumans were enough to cast a magic circle on Regia. However, teleporting something so large was difficult even for them, and therefore Sven believes that it was during the demon's movement through time and space that a mistake occurred. And for this reason, the creature ended up here, and not in the Pacific Ocean. Despite the hostility between the organizations, the OA would not intentionally do anything that could cause war. The protagonist's story was interrupted by the crash of stones. Regia managed to free her hand from the seal, and this means that the hunters should hurry to escape before the creature breaks free. At this time, Regia continued to devour parts of the hunters' bodies. The moment she swallowed half of Guan, Sven launched an energy core into her mouth. An explosion occurred. The creature didn't even flinch and immediately attacked with a beam in return. Sven barely managed to dodge. A devastating beam hit the hero's hand, leaving a painful burn. The Senate immediately provided assistance. At that moment, Lexi noticed another exit behind Sven. It was formed after a radiation attack by Regia. The main character could easily get in there, and the team understood this well. Instead, Sven prepared to distract the monster so that his comrades could escape first. The protagonist used the moonlight sword technique. At that moment, Han, Lexi, and Sena ran into the nearest passage. Regia's attention focused on Sven's energy. The monster repelled the attack with a beam, and then he immediately attacked the hero. Thanks to the acceleration of his lower body, Sven avoided being hit. Hiding behind a stone again, the hero noticed that his comrades were already in the passage. However, they were waiting for the commander and were now ready to cover him. Sven understood that nothing would come of this, so he used the explosive sword and aimed his attack at the top of the tunnel. Stones began to fall and block the way back for their comrades. They can help if they report the situation to Nod headquarters. Then the main character heard a familiar scream. It was issued by Regia. Sven realized that it was she who had summoned the mermaids to this place. After that, the creature again began to eat Domino's body. The monster should have weakened over the years of imprisonment. But now, by devouring the bodies of the hunters, Regia is slowly restoring her own energy. And if she also eats Sakura's body, she will be able to completely free herself from the seal. Sven noticed similarities in this process with his own abilities. and so he decided to try to take away the monster's powers. The hero activated the absorbing skill. For a moment, Regia paused, but then she screamed and repelled Sven's attempt. Nothing worked. The absorption ability does not work on monsters. Regia rushed to grab Sakura's body, but this time the main character decided to stop her. Sven used Moonlight Sword. The powerful energy of the technique cut off the monster's tongue, and she became terribly angry. Regia shattered a part of the stone behind which the main character was hiding with a beam. Until now, the creature did not have enough strength to destroy the stone. But thanks to the regular army hunters, everything changed. The only way out was to escape. Sven hoped he could hide in the S-shaped bend of the cave. He only has 40% energy left. By alternating lower body acceleration with a protective shield, Sven managed to reach the passage. But the monster's powerful attacks caused a collapse. At this point, Han, Sina, and Lexi were advancing through the cave, running away from the mermaids. The vibration created many passages and increased the number of mermaids. The hunter's strength was practically exhausted, and the demonic creatures were catching up. In the end, Khan decided to stop and accept the fight. There were few chances of victory, as there were about 20 monsters. Sina prepared to heal her comrade from a distance. She hoped for Lexi's support, but she just said it wasn't time yet. The healer couldn't remember what skill this girl had. And I was very angry with Sven for taking Lexi into the cave. Khan tried his best. Due to lack of strength, the man was often injured, and Senya also had to spend a lot of energy on healing him. The mermaids were pressing and there were still a lot of them. The man's regeneration was slow due to exhaustion, and when it seemed like the end had come, Lexi took action. The girl touched Sena, and she felt a powerful surge of energy. Lexi then headed over to Khan and did the same. The man felt his strength returning. It was as if he had awakened again. The situation in the battle changed instantly. Khan began destroying mermaids left and right, and within a few minutes he had won. Only now did Sina remember that Lexi's ability was the awakening of powers. She is able to completely restore another person's energy at the expense of her own. Sina realized that Lexi was moving and talking so little to conserve her strength. Sven did not talk about these features. After activating the ability, Lexi completely depleted her own energy. She couldn't even get up on her own, so Sena helped the girl. At this moment, an earthquake began. Sven raced through the tunnel with all his might to avoid the collapse. But later, the stones began to fall actively. The same situation was with the rest of the team. The cave began to collapse above the girls' heads. The Khan called for them to run to him to hide from the rubble under the shield. But Lexi couldn't move anymore, and in order not to keep Senu near her, she pushed her towards Khan. The girl herself was trapped under the rubble. Sina just managed to scream Lexi's name in desperation,